What do you mean it's his neighbor?
It's his neighbor.
Where? His parents' house?
Yeah, so it's not his neighbor anymore. But
that used to be his neighbor?
Yeah.
Which
he was running around like, I'm not going to say.
A legitimate neighor to
legitimate,
yeah. Like to his left or to his right?
I'll tell you afterward. Yes, I'll tell you.
Because I pissed in both directions. So I think I might have got him.
What's cooking, everybody? I am joined in the bunker today for the first time since the best kept secret in the history of this podcast, episode number 39, by my friend, Mr. Mike Spear. Quite simply, Mike Spear is one of the most entertaining people you will ever listen to in your life. He does not try to be, but he is fucking hilarious. Everyone from the old days, the earliest listeners, know who Mike Spear is. They love him. I told you, of course, we're bringing him back. He's somebody who comes at things from the conservative end of the spectrum. So when I want to talk to someone from that side of things, I'm going to be bringing in Mike. He's going to certainly be one of the go-tos, and you'll see why. In this episode, we drank a lot of whiskey, once again. Talked a lot of Epstein, a lot more than last time. I know people wanted us to talk more last time, and we got off it. And we talked a whole bunch of other stuff. So I hope you guys enjoy, and it was good to have the big man back in the bunker. If you are not subscribed on YouTube, please subscribe. Please like this video as well and leave a comment. Love seeing you guys in the comments. Thank you to everyone who's been doing that. If you are listening on Apple or Spotify and you are not subscribed on Apple or following on Spotify, please do so. And I hope to see you guys again for future episodes. That said, you know what it is. I'm Julian Dorey, and this is TRENDIFIER. Let's go! This is one of the great questions in our culture. Where is the nuance? You're giving opinions and calling them facts. You feel me? Everyone understands this, but few seem to do it. If you don't like the status quo, start asking questions. Last time I saw you were pulling out in a limousine to go to the strip club in Atlantic City, which God knows if there was any teeth on the strippers there, but, you know, that's just me.
That was the nastiest strip club and limousine I've ever seen, honestly.
The limo looked good from the outside. I have a video of that.
It was a $10 ride. I couldn't believe it. I mean, it wasn't far, but it was still a fucking limousine.
Wait, you got a limo for $10?
It was $10.
That was like a full-blown,
it was
like,
$10.
Stacker. It was $10.
It was $10.
I'm going to put the video of that in the corner of the screen so people can see.
Yeah, they had I guess they, like, are trying to compete with, like, Uber rating. Like, you know, like the Uber rates for that night, and it was probably about $10 in an Uber or a limo. So
wait, is it like an app service for limos?
No, they were outside. I said, what do you want? I think he said, like, 15 or 20, and everybody hopped in, and I'm like, wait a second. No. $10. It's 2 blocks away. He goes, just get the fuck in the car.
Wait, it was 2 blocks away.
It was 2 or 3 blocks.
Oh my God.
I thought originally we were going to show and tell, but apparently that closed down, which is a shame.
You fucking animal.
Because they always treated us nicely. I'm not even talking about the strippers, because half the time we end up going there and just...
Is that the place where we took meat and he blew off like $200 for the first time? Is that the right one? Because that wasn't the worst thing I've ever been in.
No, I think it might have been.
You know,
it's
there
small.
were like a few STDs in there, but nothing crazy.
Yeah, it was small. It had the upstairs. You'd go upstairs. I thought it was nice, but apparently
that makes one person in Atlantic City.
That's really all it was.
Cheers, brother.
Cheers, my man.
Good to have you back.
Good to be back.
Last time you were here, it's like a kept secret episode because I didn't put a ton of it like in marketing because we talked about all the things we're not allowed to talk about in public apparently anymore. But it was March. We got borderline blackout drunk. Good time. And I think at the time this thing it had a little more on audio, but it had like 200 subscribers on YouTube when you were in here. And now, you know, we're not at nothing on YouTube. We're at like 16,000 and we have a whole TikTok built. And now we have an audience that we've had now for, I'd say, like a legit audience for like 7-8 months, which is really cool. But this is kind of, for the people that didn't go back and listen, this is their first exposure to Fear the Spear.
It's nice. And Fear the Spear is happy that he doesn't have to watch your videos every day anymore because, quite frankly, you don't even need me as a fan. But still.
Yeah. At the beginning, it was like, I knew that the last thing that people who know you are going to do is like listen to your podcast. So I didn't bother anyone about that. And it's now cool that people are like, oh, no, I don't have to feel compelled to do it either.
Yeah, but there's something to be said about, at least with you, I always tell you, I was genuinely like, this is for him.
Yeah.
I never,
yeah. You said
I don't skip a beat. There's no, oh, well, he's now, no. This is what you were supposed to do. In fact, if you were doing what you were doing before, that's when I have to kind of, in my head, say, yeah, he's doing this now and wondering what's next. But right now, I don't really have that thought, which is good.
You and I never talked about like me going to do this, but it is interesting that you were one of my really close friends from the beginning who was like, you sure you want to do that? You sure you want to be a banker?
Yeah.
Like you were, like you knew that I could do it, but it was more, what are you doing?
Right. Yeah. I mean, I knew you weren't from a lineage of successful attorneys, so I figured that was it. No, I'm just kidding. David Dorey is a hell of an attorney. If I ever had a multi-million-dollar business, and I would call him, but right now I probably need a DUI lawyer before I need David Dorey.
Oh, no, we're not doing that. We don't do that around here.
But no, in all seriousness, this is incredible, and it's nice to see someone enjoy what they're doing. It makes my job a little bit harder every day, realizing I got to find that spot. But you find it every time, which is nice, You
love being a lawyer, though, no?
I love being a lawyer, but, you're still, it's at 9, know when the start to finish doesn't change. You work after hours if you have to, but you get up, you expect kind of the same thing almost every day, unless you have a trial.
Pull that mic in just a little bit.
Yeah, if you have a trial or something, that's you're the star of the show that day in front of people you don't know. That's different, but the day to day, it's still day to day. It's still the 8 to 6:30, the 8 to 7.
There's such a game with it, though. Like, because you're a trial attorney, like you're a no fuck around attorney. You know what I mean? And there's high stakes at all times. At least you have that. The guys who are just kind of like consulting attorneys at all times on things, like even like what's it called, general counsel at some mid-sized businesses, they get bored.
Yeah, I mean, I think they do. And the worst feeling I would imagine for them, I mean, the paychecks look great, but, oftentimes there'll be litigation and you're GC, general counsel, and yet you just see a team of lawyers come in to your company and are like, okay, we got it, buddy. Bring us up to speed for 10 minutes and we'll take it over from here.
It's like the FBI coming into a cop station.
Right.
We'll take it from here, pal.
Right. But
I got to give you some credit, though, on a non-lawyer note. This was after we were blasted, but you called the whole Andrew Cuomo thing. I got to give you your flowers for that.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know who Mr. Cuomo is. I don't know if he's famous or has any notoriety at all. The father. But there's obviously
Mario Cuomo?
Is he who is Mario Cuomo?
Mario Cuomo was, I can't believe you don't know this.
Is he some kind of serial?
Michael Spear, don't know this. Mario Cuomo was the governor of New York. Their father was the fucking governor of the state.
I never lived there. I don't know.
All right, go ahead.
But in all seriousness, listen, I think I was telling you this earlier, but, they made the, I think it was like the Assassin's Handbook or whatever it's called.
The what?
It's like the Assassin's Handbook. I don't know. I might be getting the name wrong, but it's essentially this guy who, we don't really know who it is, but he created a step-by-step guide on how to kill people and get away with it.
Who did this?
I don't know, and I don't think anyone really knows who the guy is that authored this.
I'm going to Google it. Keep going.
Yeah, so he creates his handbook. God knows who used it, but at least people like me and you, we know about it or are learning about it. When I read, or at least heard about what CNN Fredo Cuomo said to his brother, I'm thinking to myself, this guy had a fucking playbook on how to basically get away with sexual harassment. So I was concerned when he was naked in front of his wife's yoga class.
The younger one.
But now I'm deeply concerned.
Well, he had the thing. It was a couple months ago now. I know you texted me about it, where he was actually officially finally accused and vaguely admitted to it. Like, I'm very sorry for being inappropriate or whatever. He put out a statement, but it was with some reporter, I think. I don't remember, so people look it up. But there was something where there was even an email trail to it. So then I'm looking at this whole thing, and his brother's defense, which was fucking hysterical. Like the whole, I'm Italian.
Right.
We kiss. I kiss men. I kiss women. It's like if you're the PR lady handling him, There's no way that you were letting him out there doing that. So he definitely went rogue.
And you're talking about, this is Fredo Cuomo who's saying this about, or is this you talking?
No, this is Big Cuomo.
Oh, this is Big Cuomo.
Big
Okay.
Cuomo, who said that as like his defense at the end. Remember his last ditch effort to like stay in office,
Yes,
and he's like,
now I remember.
"We kiss people. My mother, she's a lovable Italian woman." So you see this whole thing going on. It's like a charade, and it was almost like once that happened, I'm thinking to myself, "Oh my God, he's going to be right. Spears going to be right. We're going to hear about this soon." And then boom, it's like it feels like simulated now, I guess is my point. Like when you see scandals like this, you kind of know what's going to happen next. If it involves a family or something like that, the next one's going down. And you wonder what's the truth and what's not. But like with them, there's evidence that they've always been a little fucked up.
Right. Yeah, but you know what? We didn't spend a second figuring out whether there were, or I shouldn't say figuring out, considering what we were talking about. We were talking about sexual harassment. That's not what we were talking about, though. We were talking about you and I and the general public, right and left.
Yep.
Okay, this guy, Mr. COVID, then you have the right wingers coming in, just like the left wingers coming in and defend him. But we never really talked about the fact that he was accused of sexual harassment, as far as touching, basically, is my understanding, using his position of power to take advantage of these people. I mean, that's the sick part, but yet we spend our days on CNN trying to say, oh, no, I was right, or no, you were wrong, and we missed the whole fucking boat.
There's such a problem with it. It really, it's hard to think about it. I know we make a joke out of like how fucked up some of these people are, and sometimes it is funny, but we have this trial going on right now with Ghislaine Maxwell, which is conveniently having a lot of things not necessarily pushed to the mainstream. And that's like the center of it all, the whole Epstein thing, which we actually did talk about that last time, but we didn't. People were kind of, the one thing they were saying after that episode is they're like, I wish you would have stayed on that for a long time. So now the trial's going on, so we'll talk about it tonight. But, that's like a main symbol where it's just like Looney Tunes world. But what it feels like to me is that we are just seeing more and more stories pile up of people not just being like people with attention and people high up in pop culture, not just being like sexual harassers or something, but we're seeing people like, how many fucking pedophiles are there now? Everyone's a fucking pedophile. Chris D'Elia is a fucking pedophile. Like you can't, it's almost like, and I guess like that's alleged, but still like, I mean, he's texting like fucking 15-year-old girls. Like what is going on with the fact that like, I know this happens in regular America too. There's some fucked up people, but why is there such a gross distribution of people who happen to also have a lot of money who just like want to fuck kids? Like it's sick and it blows my mind.
Yeah, I mean, before I even talk about that, so just so I understand, Chris D'Elia, he is the comedian, right?
Yeah.
Long black hair, kind of thin guy.
Yeah.
So before I even talk about the pedophile shit, which he may be one, I don't know.
I don't know if he is, but like the whole thing was sketchy.
But
didn't look good.
Know that there's a show called You, which when I tell people about it, they basically say the title back to me, meaning like, you watch that? The answer is yes. He is actually a pedophile in that show, and then after the show came out, all of this stuff happened. So like, could you imagine being this guy, D'Elia, sitting there listening to the script writers talk about his role in this? He's got to be like, does somebody fucking know something? Is this like,
someone could be so, people in positions like that who already are certifiably crazy for being that way could be so, especially with power, right, so into themselves that they actually don't think anything of it, or they deny what they are. Look, I don't know how you get there, but if you study psychology of people who have fallen from grace over time, it appears that a lot of them somehow in their head start to think that like, oh no, but I'm different.
Yeah. Well, it's like, I look at the people who in the 90s, when we talked about pedophiles, even when we were young, I mean, oh my God, you knew exactly what the fuck we were talking about. We were talking about those thick glasses, mustache, nice collared shirt, tucked in, wearing the New Balance shoes, hey, you want to get some candy? So those people are out there, but then you have the totally other end of the spectrum in 2020 and even in 18, 19. Kevin Spacey. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
You know, maybe
Another guy
even,
on
maybe
Epstein's
even Uncle
plane.
Bill. I mean, you know, so we're talking about, this is the same caliber in terms of morality we're dealing with. We're dealing with this guy on the left who we grew up thinking about to now, holy shit, it's all of these motherfuckers.
I want to know what these people, where they come from. Like where Epstein and Maxwell originate. Like we did talk about their backstory or her backstory a little bit last time. Like not much, but we talked about her father and all the sketchiness there. But like where are they? Just sick people who wanted power and liked being around it and then got dirt on everyone and corrupted anyone they could, or not corrupted, took advantage of anyone they knew was already corruptible because they were morally compromised that they got information on somehow? Or were they backed by people, which I threw that out last time about the whole like, well, were they backed by an agency somewhere? I don't know. Or is this a part of some weird globalist conspiracy? Like, you know, where all these people are just, they're playing this game and the rest of us, including people who are like rich, who just like aren't in that, we don't know about it. And they're like this society, like almost out of a South Park episode. I really wonder if that could actually have an element of truth to it at this point, because, and we'll get to the trial once again, but like you see already things just being hidden completely in broad daylight and no one does anything about it.
I think left, right, and center could agree that there is a group, the Epsteins, the Maxwells, that exist. They have, their knowledge is, we'll never know the full extent of what they know, ever. I think that some people jump and say it's some kind of globalist conspiracy. You know, I think other people, you know, will tell you that it's this is what money can do. It creates these, you know, people that basically are never told no in their lives. And if that's going to apply to run me an errand, I want that. I want this person. Why can't it be? I have this weird, sick thought, you know, not saying we all have sick thoughts like these people do, but we all have thoughts that float into our head and then they disappear because we're you and I, we're normal people.
Right.
These people just may not be able to control that because they don't have to. And they're sick people who get to act on it. I don't know what the answer is, but what I do know is that someone wants these people gone, either locked up, considered insane, or just dead. And I don't know who that is, and I don't think we'll ever know who that is or what that is.
The other question I have to ask, though, when you bring that up, because I do think about this, and some people have, when I've brought this up with people behind the scenes, they're like, you're crazy. You're out of your mind. Stop it. But I got to think about this because at this point, it's all so fake in the reality of things that, like, anything's possible. Is he dead?
Who? Epstein?
Yeah.
I would think.
Is he dead?
I don't fucking know. I have no idea. I mean, I didn't go to his funeral. I didn't perform the
closed casket.
I didn't perform the autopsy. I'm sure it was a traditional Jewish burial. So I mean, I don't have an answer.
Jewish, so you're allowed to say that.
Yeah,
okay.
I don't have an answer for you. You know, but you know what I do know is that, you know, this guy he had to have known, he must have had at least an understanding that hundreds, if not thousands of people knew what he was doing. So the guy had to have an element to him that did not really feel shame for what he was doing. Now, there's also an element to him that's human, which is I want to survive and I don't want to be arrested. But I just, at that point, after years of that, for the guy to then just wake up in a jail cell and be like, you know what? I am so ashamed of myself. I'm going to hang myself.
No. Well, we know that he didn't kill himself.
It doesn't. To me, that doesn't make sense. I'm not a psychiatrist, so I'm not going to sit here and cite some text, you know, for you. But it is a human. To me, it just doesn't really make sense. Like even these serial killers, how often have they ended up killing themselves in prison? They've been killed. Mm-hmm. But, you know, we're also talking about sick people, probably sicker than Epstein, honestly. And so
it's all the same spectrum, but yeah.
I would think the serial nature of it, which is the scariest part about it.
I kind of consider that all the same. Like when you're a massive kid abuser and a massive serial killer, I guess you technically don't take I mean, some people do both, but I guess you technically don't take lives when you're doing that to kids. But you see how fucked up all these people are. You basically you and like I'm a guy, I can't even understand it in this case from the women's perspective. But you even look at like the Catholic Church stuff and things like that. Like they ruin. Whether it's males or females being abused as a kid, they ruin them forever, and it's just a disgusting thing.
Yeah, I mean, there's the numbers are probably staggering, but you have different walks of life, different resources for different people. So you have the people who it happens to them, and somehow they're able to remain successful. They don't want to ruin their careers, their families, their friends, and their relationships, so they shut the fuck up. And they move on with their lives. And then you have the other people who aren't as fortunate to have a support system. And you got people who, who decide to pull a gun out and start killing people, or you have the people who, continue to do fucked up shit and perpetuate this cycle of just destroying people. But, you're absolutely right,
The thing that I can never... I don't want to say accept. When it comes to this guy, I am constantly frustrated by the fact that even people that you like in culture, he at least found a way to take a picture with him. I mean, there's like, and not everyone, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
There are people everywhere who, like, she even has a picture with Elon Musk, I think. You almost can't find people, you can, but it's hard, at the top of culture who can't have some sort of picture traced back to standing next to that motherfucker. I mean, even like Dr. Steven Pinker, who I love. He was technically in a couple pictures with him. Now, Epstein was the whole Harvard donor and everything. He definitely had some compromised people there, but he was always going to Harvard shit. Pinker's been at Harvard for a long time. It makes sense. But still, like, he has to answer that now. Like, Steve's got to spend the rest of his life with someone asking him, like, by the way, how well did you know Epstein? I saw the picture. It's kind of sick. And then you also see other people in the pictures, though, who it's like, whoa, okay, there was a lot more there, and you kind of know it for sure. And the guy definitely right now who's in the news with that is Bill Gates. It's so fucking clear with everything. And so I get frustrated in the sense that whenever his name is near something, the waters are muddied, and you kind of have to, you're automatically fighting from the bottom of the barrel, and you have to defend. So, like, if I bring up Pinker or something, like, I got to say, like, yeah, it appears he didn't know him. But I also don't know. Like, I wasn't there.
Right.
It's scary.
Yeah, I think that even with the flight logs, which I know we'll dive into the trial itself, but, you look at these names that are dropped. Again, Spacey, Trump, Clinton. Yep. And, we don't know about the people that are just in pictures. We don't, and scarier than that is we don't know about the people we don't know about, and that number could be in the hundreds, like I said, maybe the thousands. I don't know how important every single one of those individuals. I mean, they probably have some, degree of wealth that brings them to that level, right. To be in the same room as these people. But, I almost think that the one or the one photo people or the one trip to the island people, it to me, it kind of screams like you did enough to say, I invite everybody, I invite Donald Trump. Yes. I invite Bill.
Yes.
I invite them. I invite everybody. I like famous people. I like rich people. I like to hang out with these people. But what actually went on there, I don't know if these names that we hear have any fucking idea. I don't think they do.
That's another thing, though. Like, because you just raised it right there. The whole Trump thing. Trump is the one guy, and I said this last time, but now it's worth re-examining. But he's the one guy who, across all these powerful people, is actually on the public record, like years ago, in a bunch of different ways, as completely calling this guy Epstein out. So he was, quote unquote, friendly with Epstein in the early 90s. They both liked women. I guess, assuming based on what Trump says, he didn't realize that Epstein liked girls. And so Epstein was down in West Palm. Mar-a-Lago's down there. I believe he was a member at Mar-a-Lago. And then one day, he came on to a 15-year-old towel girl. It got reported to Trump. And my understanding was Trump said, if you ever set foot on here again, my security team will shoot you. And the other story there that is not, this one is more hearsay from, if you believe the prosecutors and everything. The other one is in 08 or 09 when Epstein was taken to trial for the first time and what ended up being a sham trial. The one guy behind the scenes who was supporting the prosecution and helping them with whatever they needed down in West Palm there was Trump. So like he has all these things and everything, and then fast forward to the campaign in 2015. I'll never forget this. This is like August maybe 2015, September, something like that. He's doing, I think he did an interview with John Heilman and John Halperin, or Mark Halperin, they were on Bloomberg at the time. They had the political show and everything. And so, the campaign's like starting for 2016, and he's like now this name. And as he was like leaving the set, the mics are still on and the cameras are still running. And he's like, oh, you got to ask about Epstein and everything. That guy's touching little girls, taking people down to rape. He's saying this all on. No one did this.
Right.
And he's saying all this shit. So now, the first day of trial, we'll just get it. Let's dive right into it. First day of trial, they interview the pilot of his plane, or interview. They cross-examine the pilot of his plane. And one of the things they asked was Donald Trump ever on a plane? Yes, he was. This was not a news story, by the way. He took one flight from West Palm to New York in the early 90s, I think it was. So not to Rape Island. But the media tried to run with it like, oh, Trump was on the plane. Immediately tried to make that the story for like 5 minutes. But to me, I'm very curious to know why Trump is silent on this. Because his style is that, especially when it's not something that he has to bullshit about and he has facts on his side, he does go right to the public with it. And he'll post a video, Donald Trump hated this man, you rolled the tape, I wrote about it in my book. He'll tell you all this shit. And yet now we're 3-4 days into the trial here. We're recording on Friday night, podcast is coming out on Wednesday. And I haven't heard a word from him. And I haven't heard a word from him defending what happened with them trying to run with that the other day. And so that gets me a little confused because it's also completely antithetical to how he was for like 2 decades talking about this guy to whoever would listen.
Well, I mean, first of all, I don't know which platform you would find Trump on talking about this.
He puts statements out all the time, dude.
All right. I mean, I've seen him, I want to say as recent as last week, just flipping through the channels. Not that I would ever watch Fox News, which that could be a whole segment talking about how that's just ridiculous for probably the reasons why a lot of viewers are like, oh, I didn't even think about that.
We'll get
not
there.
Conservative enough? What? No. but he was on Hannity, and I think it did come up briefly. But I don't know. I mean, listen, this guy, his executive branch spearheaded, to my understanding, is spearheaded really human trafficking prosecution. I mean, more so at least in the last probably decade. And that might just be a sign of the times. I think now, because of how advanced, or I should say how, forensics has advanced, how easily it is now to track people. I think it's easier to prosecute these cases. But at the same time, I think he made it very clear what his stance is. But I didn't take that from the trial, the comment about Donald Trump. What I took from the trial was you have a familiar last name, Comey, who's in a direct examination of the prosecution's witness.
Can you explain to people who that is?
So Comey, well, we all know FBI Director
big guy
Comey. So FBI Director Comey, his daughter is also an attorney, and she is one of, I can't even imagine, probably 10 to 15 attorneys actually prosecuting Maxwell. And she actually had some of the direct of this pilot. And she is asking questions about all these different figures. And I'm pretty sure Donald Trump, well, I know that she asked a completely separate question outside of that line of question and said something. There's no transcript yet that I've seen. I've seen CNN quote what was said, which who the fuck knows at this point what they heard or what they're writing. But, you know, she actually separates the question for Donald Trump, which I'm sure her and her dad, they probably, give a little high five or whatever the fuck.
Somewhere Jim DiOrio is sitting there right now going, fuck yeah, they did.
Right. They're having turkey dinner like they do every Sunday, you know, American flags hanging in their house and high-fived each other. But she separated. So, I mean, it was clear that, you know, the media was going to run with it.
Mm-hmm. One-word answer, by the way.
What's that?
It was like, if I remember the script correctly, it was... Did you ever fly? She was going name by name, and she goes Donald Trump, and he said yes.
Yeah, I think I think she separated from the list. I don't know if that was deliberate or not.
Yeah, she did.
Yeah,
she did.
It might have just been to emphasize, you know, the significance of who was on the plane. I don't know.
Yeah, he was the president.
He was.
It is right. Important. I'll agree with her there.
But yeah, the media. Again, here's a great example. We have a accused. I mean, listen, it's we'll call her what she is because she's not just some kind of orchestra. You know, she's not a conductor. She's also someone who participated allegedly. So we're talking about underage children being sexually assaulted, courted, groomed, and the running line for a lot of these outlets is Donald Trump was on this guy's plane. Like, we're not even talking about the fucking guy. We're talking about her. We're talking about these people. And yet here comes Donald Trump's name by Comey, but I guess that was going to come out no matter what her last name was.
Yeah.
But here we are, you know, talking about that and not really what this is about, which is a sick person doing sick things to the most innocent people in our society.
Did you see this headline behind you? That's from Bloomberg. I'm going to read this. This is a screenshot of Bloomberg tweeting out their own article. And the article is called Ghislaine Maxwell Jury Confronts Rare Case Alleging Female Sexual Predator, which I guess is like kind of a fact. But then what they tweeted above it, I'm just going to read it and then we'll go from there. Ghislaine Maxwell's sex trafficking trial is set to be one of the biggest of the Me Too era, but the jury may have to grapple with a unique question. Is Maxwell herself a victim? I am all about... in our jury system, in our world today, where everything is tried in the court of public opinion before anyone gets a fair hearing on shit, I am all about giving people a fair hearing. What I am not about is the corporate media in a landmark case that's now the biggest case, should have been the second biggest, given the fact that he should have lived, but that's neither here nor there. But in what is the landmark case of possibly one of the sickest, sadistic global conspiracies we've ever seen, what I don't need them doing is starting to poison the waters of people starting to ask questions and paint her as a sympathetic figure as this trial goes on. If they don't want to absolutely nail her to the cross until the jury comes back, fine, I will not be a hypocrite. I will say, just don't fucking say anything. Just report what happened at the fucking trial. But when I see shit like this, and we hear about where the money is, the money's everywhere. It flows around. It sloshes around to people who are compromised. This is Bloomberg, New York guy, mayor, fucking billionaire, invented the Bloomberg. Is he somebody connected? Like, you have to ask these questions and wonder, like, how stupid do they think people are? And then also, how correct are they about that, at least to some extent of people who don't actually look at this and go, wait, what? Everyone should be looking at this going, wait, what? But I feel like people have tuned it out.
I mean, so there's two things. The bigger issue is probably worth talking about a little bit longer than this first part, which I'll say.
Do it.
So essentially, they're putting the question out there. Is she a victim? I assume she's talking about a victim of Epstein, which I assume this toxic, you know, masculinity, this male-driven culture, something like that. I'm not. I didn't really. I had to study some. I guess I wouldn't even say I had a class really on feminism, but I mean the topic came up frequently, so I don't want to portray myself as an expert, but you know that's I guess essentially what they're saying. She's a victim of some kind of culture that makes her subservient or something like that. But anyway, I'll ask you before I keep going. Who was the guy that ran over the crowd of people in Virginia? That racist motherfucker.
The guy who killed the woman at the
He drove
Charlottesville.
through the crowd at Charlottesville.
Yeah, I don't remember his name, but I know who you're talking about.
So
this is back in 2017.
Right, and I think he ended up being like this, Dixieland, really.
I'll look it up. Go ahead.
But anyway, so we have this racist Confederate flag waving guy. Is he the victim of Abraham Lincoln? That's what I want to know. Is he the victim of Abraham Lincoln? Is he the victim of the Civil War? Is he the victim of economic depression as a result of a nation no longer divided, but now? I mean, is that what we're going to do with these criminals? Are we going to look deeply into, these different socioeconomic or other excuse for why they act that way and all of a sudden forgive the behavior? You can't have that. You can't live in a functioning society where we try to, before convicting, forgive because of some social theory or some, it's just scary. But anyway, the real issue.
No, it's a good point.
The real issue is the headline and why this is coming out now. There is after the Rittenhouse trial, it is clear to me, dude, the media is gloves off again with respect to the criminal justice system. They are not going to sit back and wait for a verdict. They are going to do everything in their power, whether that's stalking a bus of jurors.
Yeah, I was going to say, you saw MSNBC literally do that in the open.
Yeah. They stalked a bus of jurors.
It's just,
she
should go to jail for that.
I don't know what they're going to do about it. I know that judge ain't playing around.
No, he's not
ain't playing around.
And by the way, I haven't said, because I've talked about Rittenhouse now in 2 straight episodes before this, and it is an important case going on right now, so we have to tie it back in. I don't want to go too deep on it tonight.
Yeah, I got you.
But one thing I haven't said, people have been running around talking about how that judge is like in the bag, like a Trumper and all that. That judge is a 7-term Democratic elected leader of a judge. He is literally the opposite of what they are calling him out to be. And by the way, I'm not even going to say his performance in that trial was all exactly the greatest thing. I think he could have sat back more and let it take its course, because I think no jury in America was going to find that kid guilty. They were just going to think he was a dumb kid who shouldn't have been there, but whatever. Like the video shows, he defended himself. But like, that's the narrative we play. And then to your point, like these people in the media, now it's a game. It's a game to them. And they're like, oh, we can just do that. We can just video the bus of jurors. They're not going to think anything else. You know what I mean? Like, They're sick.
Yeah, I mean, it's as a trial attorney, I know that, and I realize, I like to think at least that I am more considerate of the system than some dipshit from MSNBC. But at the same time, like, we are instructed that I can't take a piss on the same floor of the courthouse as the members of the jury. They will separate which floor I can take a piss on. Naturally, the jury gets the floor that they're right next to, and I have to either go up or down an elevator or stairs, which is fine.
Good for you.
But, these people have no shame, no consideration for the system. And it's all about, I don't know if it's a narrative, if it's money, if it's power, what motivates these people, but I mean, they are just doing their own thing and they don't give a shit what they ruin or what they affect along the way. And it's scary.
I try to pick out patterns in my head and I go nuts when I do it, because you can just run with it. And this is what conspiracy theorists do. That's why I stop. I don't go where they do. But I still have that moment a couple times a month where I start thinking about it. And it's where you take these different themes, you grab an Epstein. Okay, a lot of people are pedophiles out there in power. Okay, then you grab the political system. All right, the DNC pushed out Bernie Sanders. The RNC couldn't control Trump. Then they went all around him. Now we got Corona. Now everyone's home. Oh my God, look at Australia. Where's the money coming from that's going into? Oh, it's coming from China. Okay, now look at it. You know what I mean? You can go down this whole thing and start to time together. But one thing I am very confident in and not afraid to say is that we have we have been put in a position where we assume that we incentivize when actually the people just decided to do it. A elite controlled society where people in media, in power, therefore who are partners with them and control it, tech platforms now, things like that, they run around and continue to convince ourselves to fight over certain things to distract from what's really going on. And I've shared that overall theory 100 times on here, and I'll share it as many times as I have to, because I feel like we now live in this world where we are forced to see all these differences in each other to the point where it's almost like you're constantly on high alert and you're thinking about things that you shouldn't have to think about. It's almost like making you have these thoughts in your head, when in reality, we've never had more in common at any point in human history than we do now. The people who are struggling and who get the most pissed off at shit like this, they might be people who look different and are from different places, even, forget America, even from different countries. But they're part of the same problems. They're seeing jobs go away. They're seeing automation come in. They're seeing their personal rights die down. They're seeing absolute chaos in the media, as you just opened up this whole thing about alluding to. They're seeing narratives that don't even make sense, that then sometimes if they don't pay attention close enough, they actually believe. And then they also see that they can't see a dollar or whatever their currency is go as far as it used to because the government's printing it all away. And they can't explain it, but they know that they're living paycheck to paycheck, and it's even worse than that sometimes. And there's so many people like this that, like, we should all be uniting. I'm in that boat, right? But we're not, because we still listen to enough of the noise, enough of the muse here that yells in us like, by the way, remember, the cops killed a bunch of black people. Right. Remember, by the way, this country's completely built on racism. Remember, your whole system of heterosexual cisgender white males, that's what ruined everything. And it's like, okay, some of that stuff even has an element of truth of it. That's why you're able to say that. But then we take it to a level like we are literally living in 1865 or 1920 right now, and the system has to burn down completely or we're all fucked. And that's not the truth.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, this is why I like what you do, and I think that's why there's hope for, I guess, breaking that kind of structure, or that, I don't even want to call it a norm. But it seems like they've been doing this has been around forever. This tactic, divide and conquer. But I think that through this pandemic, I always say they, and that we never know what the fuck I'm talking about. But the powers that be, I think they need now more than ever to divide, because if they don't, we're all sitting here with our thumbs up our asses. Without work, without childcare, without normalcy in schools, without the ability to see family without getting disciplined or ridiculed by career doctors or doctor, and without these hot button issues that they just shove down our throats, you're probably right. They have a major problem, and the narrative is killed. But yet we're not talking about the bigger issue. We're talking about things like this unfortunate shooting that happened in Michigan, where I know what's coming next, which is going to be the gun control conversation.
I disagree completely.
What do you think is next?
Spear, have you taken a straw poll of people who lean hard left on guns?
No.
Dude, the pandemic ended gun control. That's why they're not making, it's not like as loud as usual for after even this thing. They're making a news story out of it, but there's not. I saw one CNN person was like crying on the news about, I hate covering these stories, but they've quieted down on this. They started doing it before the pandemic, but once the pandemic happened, everyone was buying guns, dude.
Right.
And I was always more conservative on guns, but I was admitted, you can go roll the tape on this podcast. Go listen to episode 16 with Mitch Laxamana. I was one of these guys who was like, I don't support banning AK-47s because I know they just come for everything, but why the fuck do you own it, right? now with the full pandemic going on, and really the thing that opened my mind was Australia, just looking at that, because it's basically like a gun-free society, and I see what's going on there. Now, bro, buy legally, obviously, buy every fucking gun you can. I am and I'm very conservative on that issue because I've seen it in practice. And so I say that because, you know, I'm somebody who probably leans a little bit left. If we're gonna be more like liberal about it, not to be pun intended there, let's say I'm down the middle. I also know a lot of people who lean hard left, who they may not go as far as I just did. They're not going to do that, but they're not screaming for gun control anymore. They don't want it.
I mean, what are you going to do with your gun, though? I mean, do you really expect to defend yourself from the government? I mean, you act like you could just walk into the Capitol unimpeded without getting killed. Oh, wait, yeah, that did happen. So it's being sarcastic.
That's not what I mean. That's not what I mean. I know, but that's not what I mean.
But I think you're right. I mean, listen, I didn't go crazy. I mean, I own a gun legally. One of 10 legal owners in Philadelphia, proud to say. But in all seriousness,
you definitely sit up on that fucking roof deck with like Tony Soprano with your gun.
No, I don't.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah, no live ammo. It's all blank.
Not an Alec Baldwin situation.
Oh, tell you save that. I watched that whole thing anyway. I'll tell you about it later.
All right, we'll get there.
But no, I mean, listen. It's scary how easily we kind of bent and kneeled in submission. But I think the people kind of did eventually come to their senses and say, "What the fuck? What just happened?
Right.
Wait. My kids can't go to school, you know?" So I think you're right. I think overall they probably will depart from that for now. It'll be recycled as it always is, but you're probably right. I think the hard left advocate for total gun control, the Betos, are probably few and far between right now for good reason, probably.
Yeah. It's an unpopular thing to do. And now they're talking about this whole thing. What the fuck is it called? Oh my God. There's a term for it in the Constitution because of the demographic switches of people leaving states and shit. Like where there's going to be, the overall votes are staying the same, but there's now like the question of from a state level, are people so pissed off that so many states like go red that there's like a constitutional convention or something?
Oh.
You know what I'm talking about? Where the states can say, like, we take away federal power to do this, and that, which I think, the sounds of that to me, and I'm a states' rights guy, but I'm like, that sounds like end times if that happened.
Yeah, a buddy of mine, he said it a while ago, and before the pandemic, and for what it's worth, he's probably been saying it a lot longer than most, but, he said in probably not in our lifetime, but in our kids' lifetime, we're going to see a major upheaval, and I'm not saying collapse of Rome type of thing, but we're going to have a major conflict in this country and probably worldwide, the way that this world is now, a domino effect type thing. But there's going to be a major conflict. Like I said, I don't think it's in our lifetime, but it's coming. I disagree.
I think it's coming. I think. Have you and I ever talked about the fourth turning?
No.
Some listeners, I've talked about this probably like 4 or 5 times before, so apologies to people who have heard this. But The Fourth Turning was a book written in 1997 by 2 historian sociologists who did the one thing that most or all historians never do, which is they didn't take the confirmation bias of the fact that they're a smart historian to then try to predict the future in a future that they would change of past patterns. Oh. Right? So historians are usually the worst predictors of the future because, not because they all try to be, but they think I've studied so much I can predict, right? These guys just said, we're going to find patterns and then go like this, boop, and lift it right here. And that's all we're going to do. We're not going to say what or exactly what, but we're going to say These are things that happen, so expect that same pattern to occur. So they wrote this book where they broke the world up into what they called a seculum. And we'll focus on America, but they figured out this pattern since like the time of Jesus Christ. And a seculum occurs over about an 80 to 85 year period across 4 generations that repeat over and over. The generations of the prophets, the nomads, the heroes, and the artists. And the cycles that they come through are like the boom, the cultural awakening, the brooding of a crisis, and a crisis. And the artists, the last one I mentioned, are always age 0 to 21. It goes 0 to 21, 21 to 42, 42 to 63, 63 and up, and anyone above that, it's like, well, you know, they're an outlier. The artists are always kids. That's 0 to 21 when the crisis happens. The heroes are always coming of age when the crisis happens. The nomad, aptly named, is always in charge. 43 to 64 or whatever it was, that's like your prime. That's when you're going to be president or something like that. That generation's going to be there. So like the last time the heroes were in a crisis was World War II, and they were the greatest generation fighting. Mm-hmm. We're the very back end of the millennials, but the millennials are the heroes. And we are in a current 20-year crisis zone, which is what these guys predicted in 1997. So just to get a little fucked up in the head pattern to look at here, World War II, 41 to 45, 80 years ago. The beginning of a crisis period is usually in the first half has a financial crisis. The stock market downturn, 1929. 2009 was the bottom, 80 years. Before that, the Civil War was 81 to 65, 80 years before. Before that, the Revolutionary War, 73 to 83, 80 to 85 years before. The shit comes in cycles. And so what these guys said is that a climax of our crisis cycle will occur by, say, 2025. And so far, when you look at this millennium, which they were predicting in the 1997 book, they have nailed to a T everything. They said the great financial crisis, whatever it is, they didn't say what it was going to be or how it was going to be caused. They just said 2005 to 2010. They said the movings of a great rise to the crisis climax will happen towards the end of the 2010s after a bumpy ride. I mean, I could argue we had quite that in the 2010s. And now we're in this period from about to be 22 to 25 where it's like, well, now it's going to go overload. So you bring this whole thing up, talking about a kid, you know, with the whole gun control argument, and a kid who was 15 years old, who went in there and took 4 lives. And now, you know, people are going to fight over it, and it's a sick thing and whatever. But I went in and I looked at this kid's YouTube page from when he was 10 years old. I went in and looked at his Instagram page too, which had, by the way, they missed all the signs. The school, if the news doesn't make a story out of the fact that everyone fucking knew this was, I don't want to say they knew he was going to do this thing, but by the last days they did. He wrote it on his fucking Instagram. If they don't make a story out of that, that's a disgrace. But the signs may have been there. But 5 years ago, 10-year-old kid, he's just a cute kid making videos with he's got friends, everything, looks like a normal kid. Then he goes through his hormone phase, right, where they start to come in after age 10, specifically 12, 13, 14. And what's happening when he's going, you know what the prime of that was like. I would say 13 to 17 was a fucking wild ride, you know? So what's going on when he's in those ages where that's starting to hit 13, 14, 15? The fucking pandemic. So this kid who had these friends when he was 10 years old is now laid back from society, has far fewer friends, pissed off at, I mean, go look at his shit. He's pissed off at the world. He's blaming shit on other people. And his parents are obviously not the greatest parents in the world. They also appear to have some of their own angers directed at society. And he gets to this point. And I'm saying, like, yes, this is one kid who did this. And we see far too many stories like this. But he's just the symbol of a greater problem. So when we talk about a crisis here, this whole thing, this pandemic, which COVID's a very real thing, but the cost that we have put on society with it, particularly to our youngest, most impressionable people, the artist generation growing up in this crisis, is at such a level that they are going to be psychologically ruined from having their most formative years completely fucked. And I don't know how, like you talk about when's this thing gonna happen. These guys, the Fourth Turning guys, think it could happen in like 2025, like the actual thing. But that doesn't necessarily mean the patterns of when a republic is in power follow that 80 year. Like it may just mean that was the beginning of the end, and then the next 80 years is when it officially goes down the hole in the next cycle.
Right.
What are these kids going to be like when they're in the 21 to 42 coming of age generation? What are they going to be like when they're in the power generation, 42 to 63? They're depressed at the world. They don't understand people like we did. These kids are going into offices, to doctors' offices, and formulating new medical tics, no pun intended, because they're watching too much TikTok and they do weird shit with their body. They're getting fucking programmed.
Yeah. I mean, I think that it's a spectrum of kind of, I hate using the word socioeconomic because it's just, it makes me feel like I am somebody I'm not. But in reality, you have to consider, who we're dealing with. So we have this guy, obviously the parents are a little off kilter wherever they are right now, Mexico, wherever. But
yeah, as of tonight, they were on the run, but their lawyer denies that they're on the run. So,
yeah.
whatever.
So I still think though that while it seems doom and gloom, there are people, kids that are this generation you're talking about that aren't this guy, that are going to go through the same pandemic. They'll do it with 6 siblings. They'll do it with families that aren't connected. Like this kid may have been. Obviously, this guy had his own YouTube channels. As a kid, I mean, we didn't have that as kids. I mean, maybe if we were born when he was born, it would be different. But
we had Facebook,
but maybe not.
Yeah.
Your parents are still your parents. My parents are still my parents. But I don't know if it's going to affect everyone the same. I think that a lot of people will grow up with somewhat normal childhoods, and this will just be like, kind of looking back, whoa, that was terrible. Remember that? But the sad thing is, 2 years of trauma in some kids' lives, that ain't ever going away. It's going to affect their development. It's going to affect, obviously, their social skills.
That's the worry, man.
And trust in, what, no matter how shitty it gets, trust in this country. I mean, they may not understand it like we do, but, we at least look as, these schools as like, they're like fucking churches. At least that's how I view them. I mean, they're the most sacred of places pretty much. Can't say I love the people that are in them advocating and teaching, but as far as the kids being there, these are like, sanctums. And, for this kid, wasn't for him.
No. But that's what I'm saying. There are a lot of kids who aren't fucked up like him. They're not going in. They're not even thinking about doing shit like that. But they're being fed the same bullshit over and over again. One of the things I do look at now, and I know different generations use different resources differently. I understand that. And I also know, talked about on this podcast, but Facebook's Meta is trying to kill off Instagram. They're just milking it for all the money it's worth, and they're making a fuck ton of money on Instagram right now. And
Facebook.
They're cluttering. They're called Meta now. I don't know if you heard that.
I know that I can log in through Facebook.
Right. So you're not an Instagram guy, but Instagram's UI UX used to be fucking incredible, and now it's kind of a trash dump. I mean, I get depressed scrolling my thumb through there. I can't even find people I know. There's someone whose videos I interact with and I actually watch them. Like literally every single time. They do an awesome job. They're like quick videos. Can't even get them on my page anymore.
Really?
I had to go to their page the other day. I texted them. I'm like, I haven't seen any in like the last 4 weeks. So Instagram's just like milking all this money out of it. So that may also change how people use it. I've noticed it changed how people use it in my generation and like people I know. But I will look at a lot of these kids' profiles when it comes up, like someone I know or something like whatever it is. And I'll see the same story. The kids who are coming up now who are as young as 14 but as old as 18, they'll have profiles that have no posts on them, a lot of them. Like literally no posts. Or they'll have like a couple memes. They don't post a lot of their own pictures, or they post pictures that are from far away that no one can even tell it's them. It is completely different from the generation who was putting up their face filtered on fucking Visco like a basic bitch everywhere and calling that, you know, like this is my life and this is what I am. But those same kids now are still on other platforms and even still on Instagram with the other generations, subjected to a world where everything's burning around them. But all these other people seem to still have a good life, and it's never going to be good for me because I don't even know what a good world looks like. These are the kids who grew up after the financial crisis happened. These are the kids who grew up in a time where our political system got flipped upside down and people started hating each other. These are the kids who grew up in a time where coronavirus stopped their world. And you talk about personal interaction, and this is where I'll disagree with you. If you don't think that we're at almost 2 years now, who knows how fucking long they're going to keep doing this. If you don't think that putting a cloth on people's faces and having them have to look down when they walk through the hallways because they can't look up at people because they're afraid to get this fucking thing and spread it, and it's fear, fear, fear. If you don't think that that is going to affect their ability to develop and forge real human relationships, I don't know what movie you're watching. And that is what is going to affect society the most, in my opinion.
Well, I'll tell you what, makes me sick. I can't obviously relate to somebody in that age group because I'm a grown-ass man.
And we're coming back to the Epstein trial, by the way. We're just on a sidebar. But I will say that it obviously hasn't affected my ability to socialize, at least my capacity to socialize, because I've done that. I've had the 13 and 17, which I'll concede. I don't think anybody in this 13 to 17 generation is having. It's just not happening for a lot of different reasons. Just because shit changes. Age 13.
I don't want to sound like my fucking dad.
Right.
You know what I mean? Shit changes. Trends change. But I will say that I have never been fearful of this virus. However, I have been fearful of the perception the public who is fearful will have on me if I don't act a certain way, if that makes sense.
Yes.
The most common example I'll use is the office building I'm in. For the most part, including the employees that actually, the management company that's in the building, whatever they're doing, whether it's, janitorial, whether it's front desk. I mean, they're rarely wearing a mask. If they are, it's, you get the halfies, the Philly halfie, whatever.
Oh my God.
But
that shit drives me nuts.
At the same time, I will walk in. If I walk in one day, I got to make sure I got a fucking mask on me. I mean, I have changed, but
still
at one point, and this isn't because I believe in this shit necessarily.
I know.
This is because I don't want to deal with it. What happened to me, and I was fucking floored. So, and I don't want to go on a tangent here, but
do it.
We've been having virtual everything. Everything's fucking virtual now. Even we were at a point where even the meetings in the office were virtual. It's changed a little bit. So I had an opportunity to go 2 blocks down JFK, to a defense firm. And we were having an in-person deposition. I was like bragging about in the office. I'm going to go see some fucking people that I hate. I'm going to get to look them in the eye this time.
So fucking sad.
So I go over there. I walk in the office, and as expected, at the defense firms, which traditionally are a little bit more conservative than the plaintiffs' firms, they don't have their masks on. Neither do I. They didn't really ask me about vaccination status, to be honest with you. I think the court reporter asked. Everyone has their masks off. We get the deposition done. Shaking hands. Good to see you. See you soon. I hit the elevator. I get in the elevator. There's a guy. He looks like I forget his name. He's like the really short, fat comedian who's not really funny. He hangs out with Nick Kroll's group. I don't know his name.
I don't know.
But anyway, I'll think of it later.
Okay.
This guy is sitting in the back of the elevator with a mask on. I get on without a mask on. He goes, "You've got to be kidding me." And I'm like, I thought that maybe I hit an extra button. And I was like, oh, shit. You've got to be kidding me. You come on this elevator without a mask on? I turn around and I'm like, I was speechless.
God.
I was speechless. He gets off the elevator and looks at me and he goes, "You're a real asshole." Still speechless. And as the door's closing, I'm like, fuck you. And that's all I can do. That's all I can do.
And you know what? It also not, and I don't blame you one bit. And you see that's my reaction. Good.
Right.
It even shouldn't be, though.
Right.
I would do the same thing as you did in that moment, 100%. I probably would have been a little more animated. But, like, this is madness, dude.
I mean, they did a number on me.
How so?
You know, these people. Well, the point of the story that I was telling you was eventually now I get to a point where I keep this fucking mask. Sometimes I wear it around my wrist like a watch, just in case. I feel like I'm in a situation where I better put this thing on, or else I'm going to be in a situation where I'm going to have to fucking verbally assault or verbally get into an argument or whatever you want to call it, because of this stuff. So, I mean, to get to your point, which was how we started this whole thing, is that's me, who I basically, you've went to college with me for 4 years. Mm-hmm. There's not a lot that could shake me. And this has kind of not, I don't want to say it's actually, a Pavlov's dog situation, but
yeah,
it's getting there.
Oh, that's great. I haven't heard that yet. That's great.
And I'm kind of getting to the point where I think things are looking up. I think people are backing off because I think people, listen, like you said, left, right, center, they're getting tired of this. You're Australian, European, American, they're getting tired of this. You know what I mean?
There's enough people who aren't, though. That's the problem. There are enough people who were so lost and had no hope and felt like everything, like the same people I talk about who even are pissed at this whole thing. There's another diaspora of them who have just decided it's never going to get better, and this is actually the best thing that ever happened to them. They're forced to be locked inside, and so they want to lock everyone else inside too, to convene in their misery. And that's what scares me. And like, there's a part of me that really empathizes with those people. But we've made political issues out of shit that is not even remotely political. And now I love that you just said the Pavlov's dog thing, because that's exactly what it is. Once people take an attitude on something and you keep just reinforcing it down the line, and that's not a perfectly parallel example, but you understand what I'm getting at here. Eventually, it just becomes reality. Right. Same way that, like, if you, like, when I started doing this, my best, because there's some of the shit going on with me, like, we've talked about it, my best work comes late at night. So my schedule's weird now. I'm up until 4 a.m. I wake up at about 10:30. I used to be a guy getting up to work out at 4:45 in the morning, right? So now I'm the opposite, and there's a few different reasons for that. But in order to go back to that, obviously I'd have to get out of here because of some of the other shit. But yeah, there's a certain level to it where that would not just even me, that would not snap a finger. That would be like, all right, I need to plan 28 straight days of getting up at 4:45 and being in bed and ready to shut my eyes at, 11 o'clock at night or 10:30 at night or whatever. So once you've now made society fear all of this, and then you've also given them chaos by lying to them, I think. Maybe some people didn't lie. They actually thought certain things were going to go a certain way, and maybe this thing is going to improve. People don't throw that out there. Maybe they are, even if it's big pharma companies that you don't like, and I fully understand that and agree. They buy the media, all that shit. Maybe they are going to come up with the thing that actually really does stop it. But since they haven't, and they said they did, the fact that you have all these people who are upset at that, but all these other people who seem to be oblivious to it, it goes to show you it's because they've been conditioned over and over and over again, especially people who, lean very, very hard left, who only listen to that echo chamber. That's what that echo chamber's wanted. Ever since Trump got out of office, or was starting to get out of office, and this whole thing moved over to Biden, they now became we're all doing it. And if you don't, fuck you. You're an idiot. Listen to the state. That's not what liberalism is supposed to be. Liberalism is supposed to question the state. That's what disappoints me. And there are still a lot of liberals out there who feel that way, who are just disenfranchised right now. And I think the train has left the station. I think the people who are dug in are dug in. It sounds like you think some people will go back or are starting to just be totally sick of it. And there definitely are. I agree with that. But it's like, are enough of them like that? I don't know. All it takes is one person in the room to be like, are we risking people's lives? And enough people to be like, yeah, we might be. Even if in their head they're thinking that's bullshit, but they don't do anything about it.
So you have in this conversation about, mask wearing, whatever you want to call it, you have the right side of the spectrum, which basically will point out the BS. For once, you actually have a group that it gets mocked for not really looking at data and science.
Yeah.
They're actually looking at it.
Yeah.
And they're questioning and they're criticizing these studies. I mean, you and I, we had to take a couple biology classes on our way to our BS degrees. Technically a BA, but you get my point.
Yeah.
And we would have these case studies in our textbooks where you're talking about like 50 years worth of data that's compiled, and and we're still at the end of the day, they're like, well, science is science, you never know. Yet we have these studies that happen within 6 months, a year. The left relies on it, and the right says, wait a second, this is like the antithesis of everything you've told us all these years. Why now are you backing this pseudoscience when you're telling us that's not how things work? But the political side of it, why these people don't stand up in the middle, it's simple. The right and the far left of the spectrums, they go out and vote in numbers. They go in hordes. Yes. They're not the majority of America. They go out in hordes. And what the media does is one side of the media says, you see these lefty, commie psychopaths? You better get out and vote. We don't want this shit happening. The moderates say, yeah, you're probably right. That's a little too much for me. Then you got the other end on the right. You see these gun-toting, they got guns in lines to go to the voting booths. And you got the people on the left who live in suburbia whose the mothers are like, and the fathers are like, oh, I don't want my kids around this shit. And there's no middle ground. The far right goes out and votes, and they're being used by the left to say, moderate left go out and vote. The crazy left goes out and vote in numbers, and they use them to say moderate right. You're gonna be Soviet Union in the next couple of years. That's really what it is. It's the polls. The polls get people to go out and vote. A guy in the middle that says and sits down like maybe you do. Let's talk about this shit. Sit down. Let's talk about this.
Yes.
Today's this topic. Today's gun rights. Tomorrow is the just abysmal education systems that are in place in these inner cities. People would probably be like, "Yeah, let's talk about this shit."
Right.
These are all issues, but that's not what they want. They don't want that.
It's alarming. It's alarming, and I knew that in the sense that not enough people are doing this, but over the past few weeks, especially, I've gotten a lot of personal messages, and then even a few that were public too, that like blew me away from people that, by the way, everyone who has sent me some stuff, especially, and people have been sending me things that are nice for a long time. So thank you to all of you. I want to say that, but just the ones that are in my head recently, especially just because it's fresh on the mind. Thank you for putting that out there and understanding where I'm coming from. But if I were going to combine all the themes the fans have been hitting on why they like this show and why they've listened to it and enjoy it as like a break from things, it's because, number one, I have all different voices in here. I will have someone like you, and actually, a perfect example. I just had Moose in here. Moose is actually not a perfect example because he's all over the place. But like, I can have someone like you. I always cite this one, and Terrence Jones in here back to back. It's no problem. I get someone who's a lifelong conservative and someone who's a lifelong liberal who both walk the talk with
I think Horowitz
right?
is probably the biggest liberal you've had in here.
No, not even close. Horowitz is a libertarian,
I
bro.
just had to take a shot.
Yeah. Okay. He heard that one, but he's got to get pissed at that one. Horo's podcast aged. If people haven't gone back and listened to that, listen to episode 17. Alex Horowitz dropped some fucking bombs in here, and ignore the half hour where the two of us defended Andrew Cuomo's response to COVID. But outside of that,
okay, I'm wrong.
That was a cold take.
I know,
I'll admit
I'm wrong.
we were cold on that one, but still, the rest of it was great. Anyway, but yeah, I'm trying to remember. Oh yeah, defend what they were saying.
Yeah.
Like the thing that is alarming to me about what they were saying though is not that they're saying these things to me that I very much appreciate. It's that the connotation and even what some of them explicitly have said is no one does this. And what I know from talking to a lot of them, now some of them who text me are from, very clearly left, and some of them are from very clearly right. And they still say this stuff, which I'm cool with because I understand people are going to think different things. That's fine. That's any system. But like, there are people who are texting me who are in that boat who are like, I just hate all this. I just want to hear people talk about, like, we all want the same things, like the same themes I hit on. And yet very few people are stepping up and doing that, which I never thought about. So I don't want to take credit for that. I never thought about that. I was just like, all right, well, I got to start a podcast. Let's roll, right? And I just happen to be in this zone where that's how I think based on my life experiences. And now a lot of people appear to be incredibly refreshed by that. And so what I say is, okay, I'm some asshole in Jersey doing this. All the other people who are thinking like this, maybe it's not a podcast. I don't know. Maybe it is. Do something like this. Work something like this into your life where other people can benefit from hearing that people can be civil. And people can, they can argue too. They can have disagreements. They can have fun. They can, pop culture and culture is about having fun. It's about having a peaceful society where people can bullshit, but they can also be serious and they can also have hard discussions and not hate each other afterwards. That's what I like to do in here. I like to keep it, because that's how I talk with people in real life. I like to keep it heavy and light. I like to be ridiculous where people are laughing at me, and then also, serious where people are like, whoa, I wonder what that guy's going to say now. There's a benefit to both of it, and maybe it's my own confirmation bias that I don't think it's that hard, but I actually believe that there are a lot of people out there who could, they're going to do it in their own way, but they could have conversations like this. And if more people could see that there are so many people like that who are just not crazy, more people might have faith in the system and, more importantly, faith in the ability to change it.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it comes down to, again, the polls, the political polls. What's his name? Who I know a lot of people don't like. I can't say I'm the biggest fan of him. I think he thinks he's more cerebral than he is. It's Jordan Peterson. I'm pretty sure I got his name right.
I like Jordan Peterson.
So Jordan Peterson is being interviewed, and I believe it's an Australian talk show.
Yeah, I've seen this.
And he starts basically saying, how can you expect me how do you expect to understand me if you won't even listen to what I have to say? He goes, I've been here, a perfect gentleman, polite, listening to everything you had to say. And I can't sit here and say I agree with everything you have to say, but I've listened to it, and now I am smarter because I've done that. I am tired, and I haven't been called it. Fortunately, maybe I don't talk enough. Maybe, I can learn from you in this sense, but I don't get called a bigot. I have ideologies that I know the talking heads would say, this is one of them. Go find them in the restaurants, pull them out on the streets. But at the same time, it's like, I sit here and listen to all of this, the same points. And it's a shame because I think the good stuff is drowned out. I think that I was fortunate enough to hear in college ideas from certain professors. And while, I can't say I agree with everything, I learned.
I will give you this credit too. Because you were the guy walking into the bar. You couldn't do this these days, but you were the guy walking into the bar with the God, Guns, and Infidel shirt,
Yeah.
and yet, I've told this story before, but you'd be the guy hugging it out and talking with the biggest leftists on campus, and like that was a real thing. Like you and Darby were like good friends, which was today. I don't know if that could happen, but like which is sad, but that was incredible. But still, you, to your credit, you took like, what was your official major again?
Political science.
Yeah. And you purposely, I guess, put yourself in some of the most quote unquote opposite belief type classes that would exist on that campus. And maybe it wasn't like it is now because that was a little before shit got crazy, but still, I always want to give you credit for that because you're a very clear conservative scholar, all this thing, and yet you at least do expose yourself to that stuff.
Yeah. Meat really pushed me to get into some of those classes. He was, he'd be muttering this shit in his sleep. No, I'm kidding. No, he was muttering, cigarette butts, where your butts at? No, in all seriousness, it was different. You had guys like Darby who, we, every Thursday would be the let's have our first tea. Casually kind of wave to each other and say, "Hey, how you doing?" Good
Long Island iced tea.
Long Island iced tea.
Shit was dead.
The next Long Island iced tea would then be, all right, let's take a stroll outside. We'll let Quinn mediate this thing over a cigarette. And I don't think Darby ever smoked. Actually, I think he would just come out just to continue arguing.
Oh, what a savage! He really would do that.
I don't think he smoked.
He definitely didn't.
No, I don't think he did. But, him and I would be going at it, and then, you hear Quinn, he'd be like, well, listen, at the same time, this is really a human issue. And me and him were just like, just Quinn. We'll talk about, you go talk about that. No, I'm just kidding.
Quinn, can you call us, brother? Seriously. I public service announcement.
He's out there.
The kid's a fucking ghost.
Yeah.
Anyway,
talk about brilliant guy. But anyway,
brilliant fucking guy.
But you're right. There's no, it's so hard to find common ground, and it's getting worse. Yeah. I mean, it is getting worse and worse. We had a unique thing going there at that school. I truly believe we did, and it was a good time to have it too.
I didn't appreciate it at the time because we didn't really see. You did a little bit towards the end, but not many of us really saw how this was going to go, where there was going to be such tribes with it. Like, you could see some signs of it where it's like, all right, that's not the greatest, but I don't think anyone envisioned, even when we were in college in 2015, seeing, what the whole Trump-Clinton thing would become. I don't think anyone was thinking about, like, well, what's a Trump presidency going to look like? Like, there was no way to simulate that, and there was no way to really realize it. The hindsight's 20/20, but I definitely regret the fact that I didn't stop and enjoy that then. I enjoy it now, thinking about it, like when I would watch you guys, because I was in college. I was a very liberal individual, but I was not an asshole. I was more like, I kept to myself with it, whatever. I was a big fan of Obama and all that. And I would never talk with you about it because I would just listen to you. Quinn would argue with you all night. Yeah. It was hysterical to watch. And Drake would walk away because he's like, fuck this, I can't deal with this. And I'd just sit there and fucking eat my popcorn, drink my beer, and have a good time. But now, that, or like talking with Darby, it's like, God damn, I wish I could have captured that in a bottle on video. One thing I didn't fucking video the whole time, but seriously. And like be able to play that for people now and say, this is what we need right here. Watch these two people. They don't agree on a single fucking thing. And they're buying each other drinks, hugging it out, smoking cigarettes when one of them isn't even smoking and having a good time. And yet that can't happen now.
Well,
fucks me up.
I think a part of it, and I'll keep saying it because I think it's going to apply to a lot of what we're talking about, is the spectrums here. So, I know, not going into his business, but in conversations with, I don't know if Darby listens to this, but holy shit, man, he's going to be a hot topic at least for the next 10 seconds. But he, I know his background, without going into detail, was different than mine.
Yeah.
But we did share one thing in common. We were at a really freaking good school, and we were able to go out on a Thursday night and spend $10 on these freaking basically bottles of
they were
alcohol. They weren't even drinks.
They were incredible.
And
that was the best $10 Scott ever spent.
right. So, a part of me is saying to myself, you know what? We had a lot of good things going. So, sure. For us, the conversation was just that. It was a conversation. But the way the media portrays these topics, for some people, it's perceived as life and death, livelihood.
Yep.
So, am I going to get shot by a cop? Yep. Am I going to get killed by a white supremacist?
And listen, I'll give them this. They'll take examples that are real. They will take problems that have an element of truth to it. It's not like everything they just make up. Right. We talk about these issues. I think the fact that we still have to deal with race problems in this country is an embarrassment to me. I just happen to know it's not 1860 out here, right? Like, there's a middle ground with it where it's like, all right, we got to fix this. But, like, we're getting there. Let's at least point that, like, this is getting there. This is still fucked up. Let's fix that. But, like, this part's we don't do that because that doesn't sell. They say America is this horrible country and it hates you if you're not white. And everyone's white who's not black, right? Like, we've made Jewish people white. And Moose had some good arguments on this, but, like, we've made Greek people white. We've made, you know what I mean? Like, it's now this whole thing where it's like, wait a second, hold on a minute. Everyone should be able to have their own cultures too and exist peacefully and also in their own ways at their own decisions assimilate with each other and not have any basis to judge people against another based on their appearance. It's very common sense, yet we still struggle with it. So what they do is they take that, they rip that Band-Aid off and they say, no, it's not just a wound that needs stitches. It's like, yo, your body's leaking, you have hemophilia, you're about to die. And everyone gets scared. And then they take those examples you're pointing to and they say, this is the rule of everything. It's not these exceptions here. And I'm not saying they're all exceptions. I'm just using a broad generalization.
Right. I mean, like I said, I think that what you're doing is important because you actually, the people that want to sit here and listen, I hope that some of them, if not the majority, will say to themselves, I have these thoughts all the time.
Right.
And I either don't have anyone to talk to about it, I'm not comfortable bringing it up to people that I'm not close enough with, or I just genuinely, just don't want to have the conversation for whatever reason. But, it needs to happen. It has to happen because this is not – it's a shame because we're involved, so we're obviously invested in what we're doing right now. But why is it that what we're doing is somehow less important than – Andrew Cuomo, Chris Cuomo up there, looking at the TV, saying,
why are they so zoomed in on his face?
I don't know. It's probably his idea.
They're so zoomed in.
I know.
It's like the grill.
Did you hear? See, I even have to have the second pour or the second sip of the next pour, and I already feel a little drunk. But so. I heard that Brian Humpty Dumpty, apparently today he came out and he said he had the most highest rated show on all of CNN. And this is, so first of all, I'm starting to wonder what's going on with those two guys. But
that's our boy's neighbor, right?
What's that?
Humpty Dumpty.
What do you mean?
That's his neighbor.
What do you mean it's his neighbor?
It's his neighbor.
Where? His parents' house?
Yeah, so it's not his neighbor anymore. But
that used to be his neighbor?
Yeah.
What's
he was running around like, I'm not going to say.
A legitimate neighbor to
yeah.
Like to his left or to his right?
I'll tell you after. Yes, I'll tell you.
Because I pissed in both directions. I think I might have got him. But he went on anyway, and he was like, he's talking about how Cuomo had the highest rated show ever. They can't even get the news about their own network right. He was wrong. It wasn't even the freaking highest rated show on CNN. So it's just like, oh man, these people.
It's Don Lemon, baby.
Was it Don?
Donnie Lemon? I don't fucking know.
No, I don't know.
I don't know, man.
I don't even know. I thought Don Lemon was on MSNBC, MSLSD.
Oh man, I don't even know what to say about it anymore. It's not. You can find a few shows here and there. Not that I'm watching any TV, but you can find a few on certain channels where it's not too bad. But you know when they are? It's like midday.
Yeah.
It's like 2 o'clock. You can go find people on CNN. You can go find people on Fox News who aren't the worst thing God ever created. But they're on when fucking actually, like, legitimately 10 people are watching. You know, they got 1,000 people watching at night. But those primetime shows have the name brand recognition so they can cut that shit up for social media.
Yeah.
And so it does the job. And that's why, you know, when you see a story like this latest Cuomo thing where he's like literally interfering in investigations as a fucking journalist, no less, you know, it matters. And give CNN credit, suspending them, which they had to do, but, you know, we've seen crazier shit where they just cover up for stuff, and, you know, we'll see if he ever goes on TV again. I don't know if he will.
Well, I said that everybody should be doing this, and I honestly, even podcasts, I think people should consider doing.
Yeah.
He should not. He should not fucking do it. He should just go home, sit around his yard, bare ass naked, and just wilter and wither away at this point in his life. But he probably won't. I'm sure he'll do something. But what a family. I mean, what a family. How do they get there? How do these people get there? How is one here? This one's on. It like blows my mind. And the writing's on the wall. I mean, the one guy, the brother, Fredo, you can't even approach the guy and criticize him. He'll like come after you. You can't even.
Yeah.
It's not like LeBron probably gets called every name under the sun and just walks off the court. This guy who has I don't think he's accomplished very much in his life besides somehow getting his ass in that chair. You say something to him, he'll chase you down the street.
He'll be doing the fucking 1110-pound dumbbell over his head and fucking talking shit to you.
I know. It's like, dude, these guys are angry dudes, and like, oh man, it's just crazy. It's the Italian blood. You know how many Italians out there are probably like, what the fuck?
Oh my God. I don't, like, you know, I lived up in North Jersey for the last 5 years, and it's like, I don't know any Italian Cuomo fans up there. I gotta tell you, man.
No.
I can't count
Fredo.
on one hand.
Right.
Like, and it's just like, but yet they'll sit there and you know, he'll make all the Italian references and jokes like he's this wise guy, and then his brother's like kind of a wise guy. You know, it like has this weird truth angle to it because his brother's like running this bully pulpit where we touch women in the breast and we don't ask questions. We're Italian. My mother taught me, so we kiss. My father, I kissed Bill Clinton. Like, dude, yeah, I think he actually said that.
Dude, the governor walks around these events. These like midday events. We're not talking about at some freaking nightclub in Manhattan. We're talking about midday events. It just says, "Oh, I like that sausage in your mouth." Like, what the fuck? Like, this guy got away with this for this long? It's just like, we're in the afternoon. You know, Sister Mary Beth is next to the lady. Like, she talking to me? You know what I mean? It's like 12 o'clock at a freaking nursing home. I mean, these people, they're just, I mean, Joe is the king of all midday touching and kissing and feeling of anybody. I don't think he's a pedophile, though, now that I know what a real one is, thanks to 2019 through 2021. But boy, man, he is just, he just...
All right, well, there's a good spot to turn it over to Uncle Joe here, because I know you were honking your horn for Uncle Joe last year. Remember that?
All 5 of us.
Yeah. And by the way, like, I like how this episode is going, this conversation is going, because I never know what the episode looks like till after. But we have like a meta theme here of Epstein, and we're working in the crevices of it, and we're gonna come back to that and work it back around. But that feels very fitting because I don't want to ignore this trial like so many people are. But anyway, on Biden, where he's at right now, not that he's Epstein. That's not what I was saying at all, people. I'm just saying all the little things we're talking about. But to me, you know, I've always called it the Biden administration because that appears to be more what it is. I think he didn't want to do this. That's just my opinion. I think he's an old man who wanted to be retired, and for whatever reason, they said, you got to do this. So, you know, he's not with it the way a president needs to be with it. I think pretty much anyone knows that. I also think that most people, and I totally get this, voted for him because he wasn't Trump. And so there's a lot of people who voted for him who didn't endorse him or anything, and that's fine. That's the nature of where society was last year, and I get that. But it wasn't the worst thing I've ever seen for the first several months. I mean, it was predictable, the whole, like, when they started the post-vaccine push where it was like, all right, we're going to take the masks off and whatever. In May, they waited 4 months to do it. Like, there was a certain amount of political theater. I saw through that shit right away. But the bar I had was so low. It was so low that I was almost, I'm sitting here in like the end of July and I'm like, all right, I don't really like what we're seeing, but this isn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. And then Afghanistan happens. And then we get into the whole where they start talking about the booster shot with everyone and not being honest about what it is and all that. And then we get to the continued, and this was happening from the beginning, let's be frank about this, the continued just comedy skits. They're literally Saturday Night Live skits of this guy trying to talk. And now it's gotten to the point where I'm like, oh, this is bad. This is real bad.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of sad to see. I think he wanted to do this. Somebody that's a career politician like him, who isn't, he's not brain dead. He's still a man that has thoughts, feelings, aspirations, hatred, all of the emotions that, we feel. So I disagree that he didn't want this. I don't think he wanted it as badly as others wanted it for him. But I guess I'm with you in the sense that he didn't need this. But at the same time, again, knowing him, and I could tell you I have I'd say close friend of my parents, not necessarily of me, but I've met this couple on numerous occasions. I will never say their name. They were members at the Wilmington Country Club.
Oh, where I caddied for 5 years.
Right. So maybe we have what to talk about
Fine's
later.
brother-in-law all the time. Yeah.
So I had a conversation with the wife of this couple, and she was not at all surprised that not only was he tapped, he was as eager as he appeared to be to do this, because that was him. I mean, he...
Off camera, you're going to tell me who this is.
Of course.
Okay. All right. So I definitely know them.
This is kind of, I think, his the last stop on his political journey.
Yeah, no shit, Sherlock.
But at the same time, where we are now, I was very disappointed, at least in the first few months, topic by topic, but more importantly, which Afghanistan, which deserves, some thought. The border crisis was a mess.
Okay. Can you go into what was going on there?
So it started with undermining 4 years of a concerted effort to not only empower the Border Patrol by way of actual support, monetary support, support from the federal government in terms of you can go do your job, and we're going to ensure that the fruits of your labor are actually, something that you can, at the end of the day, say, I prevented this from happening to this
like
person.
ICE. ICE, you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, the story we all hear is the mother and her daughter crossing over, running from cartel members. Her village is burning behind her, and that exists, of course.
It does.
That scenario exists.
Yeah,
I'm not ignorant to that fact, but there are major, major problems with having an open border, or if not having it, not supporting those who are actually there to defend the border from not just, terrorism or drugs, but also human rights violations. Also child trafficking, also crimes that, again, we prosecute to the fullest extent of the law inside our country with American citizens. Right. But so that was a mess. But yeah, the Afghanistan exit was a little shocking, and I think even more shocking was it was really covered by the news outlets, even those that seemed to be friend of the administration. So, and I never understood that.
Because then they stopped.
What's that?
Because then they stopped. This is real. I'm glad you brought this up. I haven't brought this up once on this podcast, but they did exactly what you just said, and it seemed like, oh, maybe are they going to turn on them now? Like, what's the plan here? And then back to normal.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of suspected there would be a little bit of that, but it was kind of highlighting just the instability there. And I guess at the end of the day, it may have actually benefited the administration because they're actually showing and demonstrating how volatile the situation was. Maybe it justifies how quickly they departed versus more of a strategic, let's just get the F out of here and move on type of decision making. It was more of like we got to make a call here. It's this bad. So I don't know why the media covered it the way they did. It could have just been the fact that they wanted ratings, and that's usually what it is. But the bottom line is, we made strides in, I thought, the Middle East, brokering peace deals where we could, trying to create some, if not a government, but just some organization in these countries that would hopefully lead to stability versus...
But hold on. You have to say this, though. We did, the first year in Afghanistan, I think if you went and reviewed the tape, we did a pretty good job. We went there and we took the Taliban out of power. They were people who had supported Al-Qaeda. It wasn't Al-Qaeda, but they were the people who had openly harbored them, and we went into the mountains of Tora Bora, and the only thing we didn't do was get bin Laden, which some people think we were not aggressive enough in the sense that we could have had him a couple times and didn't, but whatever. Like, the rest of it seemed pretty good. But then we went to Iraq. And we stopped. Iraq had, look, Saddam Hussein was an awful human being, tortured his people, bad guy, not unhappy that he's gone.
Right.
The problem is he had not only nothing to do with 9/11 or the terrorists. This was one thing Trump was right about on the campaign trail in 2015, that he got away from this message, and he should have repeated this forever, in my opinion, but he killed terrorists. He didn't like terrorists. So, like, we did this whole war and created a quote-unquote two-front war and then completely destabilized Afghanistan through that. And Afghanistan was basically allowed to have this cyclone of confused people who were in the middle of the old school trying to fight back for the lost power while the enemy, quote unquote, was taking their eye off the ball and not paying close enough attention so that they could actually build, versus the new school trying to bring in democracy, and created this divided society. So it sounds like something pretty familiar, that then 20 years later that chicken was allowed to roost.
Yeah, I mean, I think we could sit here all day and talk about U.S. intervention in the Middle East, Gulf War, when some of our greatest foes were allies at the time. So I guess my bigger concern about what happened was it was such an obvious attempt to undermine both fronts. I'm talking about the border and Afghanistan. Such an obvious political effort to undermine the former president's it was policy effort, whatever you want to call it. And it's a shame because when we see it all the time, and it's not just Republican, Democrat, we see one wing, they make a stand in one area, whether it's domestic, foreign, whatever it is. You see progress, you see things kind of looking better for whoever the affected is at the time, and that exact, whether it's inner cities here, whether it's Afghanistan, whether it's Europe. And it's like the incoming administration like has to tear the shit down. It's like a fucking birthright. They like have to tear it down. And it's like, no wonder we can't get shit done. You got 4 years of this guy. Maybe you get another 4 years of that guy. But after 8 years, we're tearing that down. We're starting fresh. You get 4 years this time. Tearing it down. We're starting fresh. It doesn't surprise me we're in this cycle. It doesn't. And I don't necessarily buy into, well, you know, you have a multi-party system in Europe, and this is why. It's the same shit. The ideologies aren't that different. But I think that in our country at least, it's so cyclical. I mean, even the stock market, you can predict. I mean, I couldn't believe it. I know Morgan Stanley. They send out the before the elections, they'll send out statistics.
Your Morgan Stanley advisor.
Yeah, right. They send out statistics on what to expect when you have a Republican House versus Democratic Senate, dual Democratic House Senate, dual House Republican House Senate. I mean, it's like it's data driven. I mean, they know what they're going to expect because it's so cyclical. It's the same shit over and over again. So I think Afghanistan is an example of we had it going this way. New administration comes in. And the only thing Biden did wrong was, holy shit, man, they fucking left, and they left in a hurry. And then they went, oh shit, yeah, we forgot about 24 people. You know,
I'm not laughing because it's just like it's laughable because it's like crazy.
But it sounds stupid and silly when you think about it and talk about it. But it's kind of what happened. But the other thing I just heard, which I couldn't remember even. It's not even I don't want to try to conceal this person's identity. I don't remember who told me it, but. Evidently, at McGuire, they have like hundreds of Afghan refugees just sitting in these military bases, and they're now trying to send them to different parts of this. In this circumstance, different cities in New Jersey. I think Mount Holly was one of them where they're considering, actually relocating all of these Afghan refugees. But it's like we're just like babysitting people. It's like, and if they
and it's not that. Here's the thing, though. It's also not their fault because we came and I know you know that. Like we came in there and we had to, and we also like at first liberated them from this whole thing. We let women go back to college and have you know what I mean. And now because we like gave them hope and then said, oh, by the way, yeah, fuck you, you guys figure it out, and then let these old school people find power again. We've now left them holding an empty bag. And to be clear, you're not necessarily talking about like the translators and stuff that we left behind who helped us literally like in our efforts. You're talking about regular people.
Oh yeah.
And I get that.
Yeah.
And it's not to say like you don't get that either. It's just like I look at that different in the sense that it's a little bit of a responsibility too, that as an American citizen who's never been over to Afghanistan in service or anything like that and knows what I know based on what I see, right? Like there's a limited amount that I could know. I think it's pretty easy to tell that there are a lot of victims that we gave that false hope to who now there's a sense that we may owe them something. As a human being, I'm with that.
No, you can't. You can't take it as far as putting these people wherever they're from through military operations, using military equipment, drag them over to. We're not even talking about like Germany and Poland. We're talking about from the Middle East to the United States.
Yeah. Which
I don't even want to sit on that plane ride, let alone be uprooted, whether you want to go or not, and then all of a sudden say, sorry, we're gonna have to figure something else out. Yes, when you take them,
like send them back,
right? When you take,
that would be a mess. I agree with you there.
When you take them into this country, knowing their situation and why they're even on that plane, yes, you unfortunately at that point. And I don't say unfortunately because of the type of people or where they're from or what their beliefs are. I'm talking about unfortunately when you take such control over someone's lives because you can. Yes, you can't just then turn around and say, yep, oops, we made a mistake.
Exactly.
So
I said, now I understand. You know what? I jumped on you a little bit there. That's my bad. I understand where you're going now. Okay.
yeah, it's, and I don't know. I still think that the border is a little different. The southern border is a little different. I don't think it's. I mean, I think it's a little different, even culturally, than the Middle East. We share a lot in common with South America.
How so?
I mean, you can literally cross a land border.
Yeah.
But, religion. They're Roman Catholicism. It's just like, as I mean, I guess we are a Protestant country, but it's fucking Irish, but and Italians. But anyway, there are some commonalities. So I think it's different. But listen, the bottom line is, you got to take care of your own in that situation too. You don't want to leave people behind. Listen, Hillary Clinton, and you know what? Maybe Bloomberg wants to talk about this. Hillary Clinton, Benghazi. Okay. And I'm not saying, I'm not just going to start doing hot topics and just,
that sounded like
Benghazi.
That sounded like Trump. Benghazi. Look at it.
But if you think about it, how come Hillary Clinton, they wanted to put her in jail because there was an insurrection that the CIA may have, or FBI I should say, may have known there's a potential for insurrection in occupied middle. Whoa! I mean, these guys are sophisticated. This is sophisticated intelligence here. They thought there might be an insurrection, but in all seriousness, they were literally take her out to the frickin' shooting yard. And yet Biden just says, "Oh yeah, well, listen, we were in a hurry. We left some Americans behind."
That was 4 or 5 days ago.
Right, and nothing.
Yeah,
and they're talking about a decade, not even difference.
You know what though? The extreme affects both ends of it. You're right. It's like that went away, and they were hard on him for like a week. I was like, oh shit! Right. Like even Stephanopoulos made him look bad, like straight, like the selective editing in that interview. I was like, I thought they were interviewing Trump. It was fucking nuts. But the other side too, and I get it. Like when you lie to people so much, the idea that some people are going to assume that there's no truth is a reasonable thing. I hate to say that, but and it pisses me off sometimes because I'm like, really? Like, are you really gonna? But once I step back, I'm like, hey, I get it. Like, you've been lied to so much, you're gonna start to think that nothing's there. And like there was one video I put up on the platforms that for whatever reason on YouTube it actually clicked, which is like unreal. But it was a 23-second short where I was just talking about the airport in Afghanistan, where you see like a few people falling from the planes and shit. And I had the split screen videos and whatever. And I guess in the context of YouTube Shorts, this went like a little viral and it did some millions. And so it got a lot of comments. And I'm telling you, every other comment I see is like someone like, that shit's not real. That didn't happen. The media painted the whole thing. And I'm just like, all right. It wouldn't surprise me if some of it was sensationalized. Don't get me wrong. I wasn't born yesterday. But like people are saying like no one fell from a plane. That didn't happen. The airport wasn't real. It was all staged actors. And I'm like, I see 3 people say this. Mm-hmm. Then I see 10 people say this once it gets to, 50,000 views. Then I see 100 people say it once it's at 100,000 views. And now it's every other comment moving in over the months as this thing goes on. And I'm like, holy shit. There's a lot of people that are that far gone. And motive-wise, again, I get it. Because, like, you get lied to so many times, it's like, you're not going to believe anything. But I'm like, they're so far on the other end that, like, they won't believe anything. I could roll a tape and say, look at this. Here's 6 angles of it. And they'll be like, nah, it didn't happen. That's dangerous to me. And the weird thing is, while I look at that and I'll tell people like that, I don't necessarily blame them for it. I'm blaming the people that have made them lose that trust for so long. The same people that talk about something like that for a week, make the president look bad, as he should in that scenario, and then, it's gone.
Yeah, I blame the education system in Afghanistan that taught these people that they can get onto a plane outside of it and survive in the air.
I don't think that's what it was.
I'm
Okay. All right. Just make sure. I thought I was going to have to like hedge for it.
No, I mean, listen, it's just that was how desperate these people were.
Yes.
And you also, you're not necessarily talking about in this situation everyday Taliban members hopping on this plane.
No.
You could be talking about people who have connections to the United States government. You could have people that work on military bases. You're telling me if the United States leaves, all right, they're no longer occupying this area, and all of a sudden you're left with what's basically, terrorist occupied territory. Yes. You don't think they know you were working on a military base? You don't think they know that even if it was as simple as cleaning out the shitters on the base, you don't think that there's a chance that they're going to say you were conspiring with the United States military and we're going to kill you and your family? So listen, there are people on that plane, whether I want them here or not, who are on there because they feared for their lives. So that's what it is. But
100%.
But at 100%. The end of the day, it's the media, they hopped on it. I think it got everyone's attention. It disappeared. Stephanopoulos, whatever, however you say his fucking name. I'm tired of looking at him, by the way. I watched him for, it was about an hour.
He doesn't have a great face.
I watched it for an hour.
It's a very dislikable face.
He interviews these people, and he asked like one like pointed controversial question. Like I listen to WIP in the morning, so Angela's like, well, he starts whining and
talk to me, Marge.
Yeah. But
Bob and Mayfair, you're on 94 WIP.
He'll have Sirianni on it. He'll be like, he'll butter him up for two questions. He'll be like, he goes, your strength is to run. You have a running quarterback. Why'd you throw the ball there? For the whole game.
Nick, what was the thought there?
Right. So he, at least this guy's a more competent interviewer. But Stephanopoulos is like, it's all fluff, and then he'll ask the one question, and then the other person will be like, well, unless she's interviewing Trump, that is.
They almost have the dun 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 music in the background too.
Right.
Like that's it. I see the previews for that Alec Baldwin thing that you watched and I didn't. But like, I see the 60-second commercial spot they're putting up to pump that, and I'm like, this is exactly what people don't want. It looks like a movie. It doesn't look like a real interview. It's not like, you have to understand, these media outlets still don't understand that fucking 30 million people listen to Joe Rogan, who sits in there and talks about fucking mushrooms with people with no music in the background, and some one asshole dipshit, great, by the way, producer, sitting there and making the whole thing happen.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, Alec Baldwin, he will be facing, well, they already filed a civil suit. I know there's over 30 plaintiffs, I believe.
Against him?
A civil suit was filed against him, yeah.
For what?
Which is shocking. I guess the allegation is it's just simple. It's based on negligence. It's not a criminal case. It never will be. I think the sheriff or whoever, I don't even know where the hell they were. It was somewhere in the desert.
Yeah.
I think they've all but concluded that there's no criminal.
There was no intent.
Right.
To me, look, no one knows that, but I think it's fairly clear.
No, I agree with you, but he's at the same time. If I was his lawyer for the civil suit, let me put it this way: my client gets injured in an accident. My next move isn't, why don't you go on with Stephanopoulos and talk about how bad your back hurts? So at the same time, it's like, I saw this come up, and I'm like, that's why I was so intrigued. Because even my girlfriend's like, these are like the last two people you want to see on TV, and let alone watch. And I'm like, you know what? I'm like, I want to hear what this is about, because some legal jujitsu is going on here where his lawyer said, you know what, Alec?
Sit down with George.
Let's get you to cry about the good stuff and cry about the bad stuff. Let's humanize you. And I think ultimately it probably benefited him to do it. But he is such a hothead that I didn't know what was going to happen. It probably wouldn't have aired it. I'm sure there was 16 different drafts of contracts just to get him in that seat. of what they
crazy.
can ask.
The whole thing is crazy.
So
I will never I'll make this promise. I'm never fucking doing that. And if people ask for that, I will tell you guys. Maybe I won't say the name of who did it, but I'll be like, I was gonna have someone on. They wanted all this bullshit. I don't do that. Like, I don't understand how that's still acceptable, even in mainstream media. Like, you either do it or you don't. Get with it or not. Train's rolling. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, that's fucking the backroom elitist lawyer dealing, which I know is not the rooms you're in at all.
Furthest thing
from it. You're fucking chasing
back
those
room
ambulances.
maybe, but not elitist.
Yeah. You're in the back room of the FOP or some shit like that.
Not anymore. We'll bring
But
that
still,
up.
like, you know what I mean? Like, it's literally medieval at this point.
Yeah, it was kind of shocking to see it. It's clearly all it's mutually beneficial. Obviously, like I said, I was skeptical about Alec's side of the whole thing, but at the end of the day, it took me about 10 seconds to realize, listen, the guy ain't sitting in the fucking chair unless it's helping him. He's not doing it to memorialize what these people did or what this this woman who was killed what she contributed. I mean, they talked about her.
Did you believe him?
Huh?
Did you believe him?
Did I believe him? See, that's the thing. It's not, for me, it's not like a believability thing. He wasn't asked the questions that, at least according to the people I've heard, the talking heads on both sides, there's apparently an industry standard where when you're given a gun, that you treat it as a loaded gun at all times.
Yes.
And that's how
That's
I think
true.
that's how just regular gun owners act.
Yes.
The rules, you never point a gun at anybody unless you want to kill them.
Unless you're the prosecutor in the Kyle Rittenhouse case.
What's that?
Unless you're the prosecutor in the Kyle Rittenhouse case.
Right. But
I think that guy was just trying to become a meme at that point.
I don't know what he was doing.
Yeah. I respected the fact that afterwards, he was like right away, like, fully respect the jury's decision. Think they came to a fair trial. See you later. He knew.
Yeah. I don't think, I said to somebody, Rittenhouse, or not Rittenhouse, the prosecution in that case was probably dealt one of the shittiest hands he's ever been dealt in his professional career.
Yep.
Yet he, for what it was worth, sold me on the fact that he really thought he was looking across at pure evil. And I don't think he was effective, but I genuinely believe that he wanted to lock this guy up for fear that he was a absolute menace to society.
See, I'll disagree with you, and I'll say that actually makes the point that he's like, outside of what you consider moral or whatever, and outside of backroom dealing, he's an effective attorney to some extent at least, and was able to get that across, because I think that based on how he handled it right afterwards and then shut the fuck up and got out of there and was like, nope, we fully accept it, we're moving on. I think that he had no choice. I think he was told.
No, that's
he
my
had the
point.
yeah,
that's my point exactly. I'm saying that I think he tried the case ineffectively in the approach. So I look at it, I broke it down. Even the witnesses. You know, when you put a witness on the stand, you want to make sure, even in my business, you want to make sure you know what they're going to say. Mm-hmm. And you want to make sure that you're able to at least, you don't really want to prep a quote-unquote independent witness. I don't know necessarily in a criminal sense, because I may deal with a criminal or two, but I don't do criminal law. But, I don't know necessarily if you call that an independent witness. I think that's really a witness for the prosecution. So there's got to be some level of prep involved in that. But he had no control over his witnesses. I mean, they were basically conceding that not only were they armed, that they were pointing guns at this guy.
Yeah, there's not, look, he had no, as a lawyer, Like if he was forced into that in the back rooms, like literally like threatened. That's what I mean. Like I'm not just talking about someone who like cowered and was like, fine, I'll do it because you're making me do it and I won't quit. I think it was like, no, you're going to do this. You know, the whole man in the black hat thing. I really do from the top. And there was video. Here's the problem. Once you did determine that he didn't break a gun law, which again, kid was a dumbass, and there's no way he knew when he was going there that he wasn't breaking the law with that gun. There's no way. You cannot tell me that he knew that. The kid was a dumbass. He wasn't a hero. He wasn't any of this shit. He should have never been there. But being a dumbass, if it doesn't break the law, is not breaking the law. And so once he was there and hadn't broken the law being there, he was lawfully there. When you kill people in clear self-defense on fucking video, if you're the prosecutor in that case, you have an impossible case. To say nothing of, to your point, the witness that is alive that he got to cross-examine was, I mean, to say he was a flawed witness wouldn't even be describing it half fairly. I mean, he was down to the point where they expunged his record like 4 days before the trial began. I mean, this guy was a disaster of a witness, and I'll give him credit. He was honest on the stand.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, he knew.
Dude, I will listen, as fucked up as that guy might be, I will give him that. Like, he did not go review what this Gage guy, whatever the fuck his name was, the Gage guy. Mm-hmm. Like, review what he said. And then also watch the tape on anything that can be corroborated there. He called it. Honestly.
He shouldn't be alive, to be honest with you.
Because the other guys got killed.
Right.
Yeah.
But I thought that and this is why I'm telling you, Rittenhouse and Sandman are going to have to share custody of CNN when this is over.
Who?
Nick Sandman.
Oh,
I think Sandman's going to get him on every other weekend. They'll probably share Christmas and just make it look all good. But at the end of the day, I thought the funniest part about this case was not, and it really, whole thing isn't funny, but just in terms of the optics of it, they had it appeared to be a pretrial conference. And of course, I've seen this on the talk, so I don't know what stage.
On the talk?
Yeah.
Do you call it the talk?
I don't know.
No, you don't.
It's better than the
Get
tick.
the fuck out of here.
No,
oh
TikTok.
My God. Don't ever do that again, please. And I'm a TikToker.
Okay. I create an account just so I could talk shit on people that make fun of you on TikTok.
Oh, thank you.
So far, I'm pretty
you.
good. I'm 0 for 4 now.
That video I posted at 6. I just looked. It's it's doing pretty good.
It's incredible.
It's doing pretty well. Not
Yeah,
bad.
that's listen. I see a lot of bullshit on there, and your stuff is good. But
thank you.
What I saw on TikTok was this. I think it was a pretrial conference. I'm not sure exactly, but the guy that got shot in the arm, he's so you see him on the screen, and you see Rittenhouse and his attorney.
I'm putting that in the corner for people to see.
Yeah, so Rittenhouse is sitting next to his attorney on Zoom. And then you see the witness, and all of a sudden his chair just drops. And you see, dude, Rittenhouse literally bends over.
Like laughing.
Just laughing. And even the attorney can't help himself. And, I mean, that was such like a fucking metaphor for what the fuck this was. But for what it's worth, and I'm surprisingly, I shouldn't say seen, I've heard people say the same exact thing. And I'm in an office of, majority left-leaning, including my own blood. And they had 2 verdicts within about that week span in 2 cases involving a shooting death.
What was the second one?
The second one was the one, and it's a shame I don't remember the case, the name of the guy that died. But it was the case where he was a homeowner. He was fixing up a home in it wasn't Alabama, but it was somewhere in the.
Oh, I don't know about this. I thought you were going to bring up Andrew
south.
Coffey.
Yeah, anyway.
You're not talking about the guy who killed the cops in the warrant execution?
No.
Okay.
This was civilian on civilian. So there's a black guy who was building a home in this neighborhood. He periodically would come check on it. It was like literally in construction phase. Like it was all, beams and.
Oh, the Arbery case.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, this was a slam dunk.
Right.
Yeah.
There were 2 verdicts.
Yeah.
That were right.
There was more than that. There were actually three and a half. But yes, and the Arbery one, I was actually thrilled how that went down because there were a lot of charges. I think there were 27 total charges across the 3 different people. Mm-hmm. And the jury deliberated for like a total of like 10 hours.
Right.
And that's how it should have been because it was a slam dunk.
Yeah, it was.
You know what I mean? The only guy who had like a shadow of an argument was the guy taking the video,
right?
I guess. But even that, the complicity of the whole thing, like being a part of it, tracking him, hunting him down. You know what I mean? So like, it wasn't a hard case.
Right. He's on hook for the crime itself.
Yeah.
But, I thought there were 2 correct verdicts.
Yes.
2 different, completely different areas of the country. The jury makeup, I think
it was mostly white,
right? Yeah, and that's generally, even in Philly, that's what it really is now.
I think that's a negative that happens in the system where literally you know what they're doing in a case like that where they just strike jurors on the basis of stuff. But I will say that now in hindsight for this case, I'm actually happy that, not that I support the idea how it happened, but I'm happy that it was like a mostly white jury who then was like, oh yeah, this is slam dunk.
Right.
In Georgia, you know how that looks. And it's like, okay, like that's a good symbol. It's a good symbol because it is a case that it should be like, yes, what we saw is what we saw. That's it.
So we lost, I shouldn't say we lost, but and small business owners definitely won, but we didn't see any rioting. We didn't see any looting.
We didn't.
And I think that verdict restored some faith, and I think the middle ground type people who were kind of on the fence, thinking that this would be some kind of acquittal for these 3 guys.
Well, we also didn't see it for Rittenhouse, though, too.
What do you mean?
There wasn't rioting or looting.
Well, because it was, I think because we had, again, it's the same conversation we started with. It's a fucking scoreboard now.
Yeah.
It's a scoreboard.
Yeah, it is.
1-1. Well, it's 1-1.
And but that's what I disagree with, though.
I disagree with
that first case had nothing to do with race. He shot 3 white people. I guess it was a Black Lives Matter, but the people who were there the people at that point were rioters. They were not Black Lives Matter protesters.
Well, he did kill a black guy?
No.
I thought he did.
You didn't know? Dude, no.
Well, I know he killed.
All 3 of them were white.
I know, and to my
2 of them
Jewish
he killed.
people out there, I know he did kill a Jewish guy.
He killed, and again, if he had done it in cold blood and you saw it on video, it wouldn't matter who the victim is. But now that you can see it was self-defense, he killed a child rapist who also happened to be a Jewish guy.
And you're gonna call him a child rapist on Hanukkah? It's still Hanukkah. But no, it was 2 good verdicts. But the problem is, you and I sit here and look at it and say, all right, listen, the system works, but the pundits, the media, the powers that be are like, fuck, it's a great opportunity right there.
I'm halfway down. Like, I used that line when I did my solo episode, and I've been thinking about that because I knew what I was trying to say, but I don't want to be taken out of context. The system, the justice system here is the best justice system in the world, hands down. It does have elements of it that work and that actually have improved upon certain things. There are still things, though, that are wrong. That said, when I see weeks like the last 2 weeks where I've seen a lot of positive cases, including the one that I thought you were talking about at first, the Andrew Coffey case, I go, all right, we're at least moving in the right direction here. There are like Andrew Coffey. Do you know what that case is?
I've heard, I talk about it.
This guy, and apologies to people who've heard the last 2 episodes, one where I did it myself and then talking with Moose, but Andrew Coffey was a convicted felon, low-level offenses, but it's also ironic. His felony was for like battery, fighting with a police officer, who was on trial for a 2017 killing of multiple police officers. And the jury correctly, in my opinion, clearly, found in Florida, red state, white jury, mostly white jury, found him innocent of killing the police officers, which he did kill.
Right.
because he was acting in self-defense because his idiot father was selling OxyContin and shit. So the cops were executing a big-ass warrant for like low-level like drug dealing.
Yep.
And he woke up, saw a gun barrel through his window and started shooting.
Right.
Now, he did own the gun illegally because he's a convicted felon, which I could get into a whole argument there, but you know, he's already done 4 years in jail, so hopefully that's the end of it for him. Right. Like, I think the guy seems like an okay guy based on what I don't know, but based on what I've seen. Like, when that case comes down like the same day Rittenhouse does, and it's a black guy who killed cops, no less, in a red state. You know how that goes.
Yeah.
I look at that and I go, I don't know that would have happened 5 years ago. I don't know. And now you see people who are going, all right, you know how the government's making this case. Can we actually look at the case, though? And then 12 people go in there and go, guys, if you woke up in the morning,
right.
And the guy's girlfriend got killed, by the way, 10 shots to the gut by return fire by the cops. If you woke up that morning and you saw a gun barrel through your window, would you not grab your gun if you had it and shoot? Yeah. And they all sat in there and they said, yeah, we would have.
For some reason, the case, this one isn't coming to mind, but I'll look it up and I'm sure we'll talk about it. But you know, the other thing is you have, you know, you do have scenarios where, you see law enforcement is doing what they need to do, and then you see just an ineffective, you know, essentially DA like you have in Philadelphia. And I know we talked about it for a second, but you have this horrible thing that happened to freaking 21-year-old.
Oh, we were talking before camera about this.
21-year-old Temple student gets gunned down. 17-year-old guy, North Philly guy. So, you know, we look at it, we say, listen.
Wait. It was a 21-year-old Temple student.
Yeah, 17-year-old guy, not a Temple student.
Gunned him down.
Gunned him down. So we look at it. At first glance, you know, it's Philly. Shit happens. But who is this guy at 17? Turns out August, end of this summer. So the shooting just happens. August, end of the summer. This guy's picked up for armed robbery, carjacking, possession of a illegal weapon.
The eventual killer.
All right. So the 17-year-old gets booked. Bail set at $200,000, 10%, $20,000 to get out of jail. He ain't getting out of jail at $20,000. A couple weeks later, municipal court, all of a sudden, the guy's able to walk free. The bail's reduced significantly and essentially to zero, which means the guy walks. After that, we have the first preliminary hearing, all right? So preliminary hearing is an opportunity. It's the opportunity for the prosecution to really bring what they have to the table in front of this judge. Is there even a case here? So apparently there's an eyewitness, a crucial witness to this. They don't show. So prosecution at the time says, listen, Your Honor, we need a continuance. They get a continuance.
This is September?
This would have been the actual first preliminary hearing would have, I think, happened in September. So it's about, maybe you call it 2 to 3 weeks after the guy's booked.
So they get a continuance.
They get a continuance. You'd think when you ask for continuance and you know the biggest piece of evidence that you're asking the continuance for is no witness, you go get the witness. Second preliminary hearing. The DA shows up, prosecution. We're withdrawing all charges. So they withdrew all charges. Kid walks free. Meanwhile, he's on house arrest because after that bail, he's on house arrest now. So he's not locked up anymore. So he's out in between that initial lockup, that bail hearing. That's when eventually it's reduced to essentially zero. The guy walks. So after the second preliminary hearing, the DA says we're withdrawing all charges. A few weeks later, he kills his 21-year-old Temple student. Illegal gun.
They got rid of the charges.
They withdrew the charges, yeah. They withdrew.
Now, why did they do that?
I imagine that they told the judge that lack of evidence. I imagine. I mean, I haven't actually.
Do you think that's legit?
I haven't looked at the. What's that?
Do you think that was legit?
I don't think, in my opinion, and again, I do civil law, okay? My standards of preponderance of the evidence, I literally hold up a scale and I do it to the jury. And I'm telling you, this shit's compelling to them. because it makes the standard of my performance very low. I was like, you seen the scale? I got the people. Oh no. I said, you see the scale? I got a pile of salt on one side, and the other side I got the equivalent amount of salt. All I have to do for you people is get the smallest grain of salt and put it on my side, and I've proven my case.
Wow.
That's not the standard in a criminal case. That's beyond a reasonable doubt, which is a very, very, very tough standard, as it should be. You're dealing with someone's freedom.
I agree with that.
So, they withdrew all of this, but this isn't the first time this has happened in this city. There's a major movement to reduce bails. It's creating situations where you have alleged criminals walking violent crimes. I'm not talking about theft. I'm not talking about any type of fraud, or even some of the crimes we're talking about earlier. I'm talking about armed robbery, violent crimes. They're getting out on the streets again, and at some point you have to weigh. I understand that everyone wants to reform the criminal justice system, and there are places where it definitely needs to be reformed.
Yes,
but you can't surrender a civil society in an effort or this drive to basically eradicate the system we have. You can't do it. Innocent lives are going to be lost. Families are going to be ruined. And this is the proof right here.
Have you ever read Talking to Strangers by Malcolm Gladwell?
No.
Okay. There's a study he did in that book that was brilliant. Or he didn't do it, but he reported on a study that happened where they went through, I think it was like the Southern District of Manhattan judiciary system, and took a look at what the bail levels were set at for equivalent crimes across different races. And the takeaway wasn't, oh, these judges are racist. It was, there's some inherent biases based on previous cases of certain types of individuals from certain socioeconomic classes that make them appear to be of a certain level such that we're going to set their bail here versus the bail here for a person of a similar crime for a different...
They're flightier.
Right.
They're more desperate. I got you.
And so what the argument was is he was not screaming like, oh, they're all racist fucks. Some of them might be, but a lot of them probably aren't. They come by it honestly. And the argument was, oh, should we put AI into this system to measure this stuff? And the overall meta theme is, well, does that mean we need to fix the whole bail system and just go lower on stuff? So this is a prime example of a system where it's like a little broken, and the response is, let's fix it, but it's not a full-blown let's fix it. It's unknowingly and maybe even unintentionally, let's break it on the other end. So let's go from 100 to 0. Let's not go to 50 miles an hour.
Right.
So now we're letting people who may have just committed rape or some shit like that out on $5,000 bail that they can actually afford.
Right.
That's crazy.
Right.
The difference is setting the bail at $500,000 for some kid who committed petty theft. Not that that's a ridiculous example, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So like it went from there and now it's here, and neither one is good.
Right. I think my understanding at least is the bigger problem in terms of, it's not even bail. It's, I guess, the monetary aspect of these not convictions, but these arrests are these fines. So you have certain counties where, it could be a parking ticket, it could be a traffic violation. They will come get you.
Yeah.
If you do not pay your fine, they will come get you. They will incarcerate you. It is like kind of mind-blowing. And I don't think that really, there's a lot of different ways, I guess, to punish those who will get these tickets and not pay them. But, I mean, there are these counties out there where they will drag your ass into prison. You will be forced to go. You'll be incarcerated for a month. You'll do labor. Mm-hmm. You'll perform labor in the prison, and then they'll release you. I mean, that shit's more scary to me than this bail. That's just bottom line. But I understand where you're coming from. There's probably an issue with the way the bail is set. But again, you can't have it that you look at the particular type of criminal, because it's basically it's the flip side of the coin here. A guy like Krasner is looking at this guy. He's 17 years old. 17 years old, inner city. He's probably saying, he's a troublemaker. And now here we go.
Yeah. And it's like, it's a shit or a fart. You're fucked either way. You know, you either go the traditional route, which is lock them all up, and then you might do some shit that could, at the very least, appear prejudice, at the worst, appear worse than that. Or you go, oh, let me see the good side. And is that really why they're doing it, though? Like, a friend of mine was texting me about this on a group chat I'm on, and he's like one of these, like, radical libertarian types. And he was talking all about, I didn't know much about this, but the guy, what's his name again? Krasner in Philly. Like, for example, he's a DA who's like heavily funded by Soros or some shit. And I think maybe I'm misquoting him here, so please check this, people. But I think he was also saying like the San Francisco DA, whatever that guy's name is, same deal.
Sure.
And there's other cities that are doing this and shit like that. So here's my question around this. And I don't know, I think we talked about Soros for maybe 2 seconds the first time you're ever in here. But I think Soros is a horrible guy. I mean, if people haven't read his story, he was a Jewish guy who basically hid among the Nazis and behaved as a Nazi, which is just like, I mean, I don't even know what to say to that. But, you know, the way he's used is like this term, everything is George Soros. I've just done like some idiot math in my head, and I'm like, well, I guess he's funded $7 trillion worth of whatever in the last 5 years, and he's not that rich. So he's not doing that. But there's definitely an element to where, for whatever reason, he is trying to push certain initiatives and trying to push certain people. And I don't know what it is. But how much of it is you're getting these DAs who are, to use your words, as you did there, conservatively, and I mean that in a good way, looking at this like, oh, well, maybe he's a good kid, versus this is like a planned kind of thing for chaos.
I don't know. I mean, I'd like to think that Krasner, because his wife is, you know, these people aren't robots, okay?
That's what I'm saying. So his wife, they can't all be that.
His wife was a civil judge. We've had many cases with her. I've been in front of her before. She's now retired. She does a mediation on the side.
She like you?
I don't think she ever really got to know me. But
she didn't fear the spear.
Huh?
She didn't fear the spear.
I don't think she feared the spear. I don't think she really fears anybody.
She didn't call Saul.
She did not call Saul. But, listen, she wasn't there's some judges in Philly, never say their name. I won't even say that they're still on the bench.
Brinkley.
They're what?
Brinkley.
I don't know him or her.
Meek Mill lady.
Oh, I don't know. I'm talking civil.
Disaster. Anyway, go ahead.
But
I think that's her name.
No, she's an academic. She's not a career politician by any means. I don't think, at least. But I use this as an example. As I don't think Krasner has the aptitude, he's not in this conspiracy to
That's what I'm saying. Like, they can't all be.
I don't know about everybody.
They can't all be.
I don't know about other people, but it doesn't really matter, because you see, it goes back again to Cuomo. That guy ain't conspiring with anybody to do anything besides maybe his brother to get out of this case. I mean, he's not. I'm not using him as my talking head for the revolution that I'm trying to build. He is not the one. But and I don't think Krasner's the one. But they are out there. I don't know at what level of government they exist, if they do. But more importantly, the people that are throwing the money around, they know what they're doing. They know who they're getting. They know the end game. Because even if Krasner's goal is to do X, Y, and Z in this guy's head, he knows it's going to lead to, 1, 2, and 3.
That's the thing. We do have the power, and I say this really carefully because I rail on it all the time, and I will still rail on it. The people who are like, I can predict the future, right? But we do have the power in the modern era that we've never had before, which is that there are certain things we can simulate. And this is one thing that was a meta theme when Horo was in here for number 17 that he just fucking nailed. And it's like, you look at these platforms, these tech platforms, and the tools that they have, which then powerful people and governments can access through various means, whatever. They can figure out how people are going to react to things. They may not be able to say this is exactly how it's going to go, but they can say if we put enough of X in front of variable Y, it's going to become variable Z or in that neighborhood. And so when these people, the Georges of the world, the Soroses of the world, throw money at these people, maybe they don't have a relationship with them. And maybe, by the way, you could solve the issue. Maybe, I know money talks in this shit, but maybe guys like Krasner shouldn't fucking take his money to avoid the, like, if you want to avoid the conversation, don't take his money. But maybe that also means you never get there because he'll fuck you into submission. So it's like a lose, you know what I mean? It's a lose. If you want to have the job, you're like, well, if I say no, he'll kill my family. Or I'm not saying he's going to do
Manchurian
that.
candidate, too.
Exactly. So, like, you know, maybe that's a part of it, but also, do they really think like all of them? They don't. No. So it's that simulation where it's like, well, these list of people believe in belief 1, belief 2, and belief 3 on a broad level. If we multiplied that by 30 cities to do blank, then they might actually then think this and change the law, therefore, to this and cause society to do that.
Right. But it kind of almost makes me wonder, maybe these trends we see, legislative trends, you know, city to city, and I'm not talking about, you know, Newark to Trenton. You know, I'm talking about across the country, where you have these. I look at them, and I'm thinking to myself, where do these guys come from? Like, how do these beliefs just pop up in these areas? And they're so similar. You know, whether you got a mayor in Philly or someone down in Houston or Austin, and all of a sudden they're popping up with the same talking points. It makes me wonder if there is some funding going into X, Y, and Z. And
it's the globalists.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
they're paying everyone off.
It's something. I mean, because I genuinely do not believe that these, even some of the higher level, but these lower level.
They turned all the frogs gay, Spare. Pay attention.
But that's actually based upon. So it's I think you always. I think you say you're like always like, well, look, what if you just took like a like 1 out of 10 things he said, and we're like, okay, well,
Alex Jones.
Let's assume that's true. I mean, technically, he's talking about a real thing, but the context is so fucked up.
Yeah, the problem is when, like I always say this, but when he gets something wrong, it's not like, oh, sorry guys, I said 75%. It was really 45. Right. It's like, no, it turns out Barack Obama doesn't fuck children and kill them in his basement.
No,
like,
he's not a reptile.
Yeah, right. I'm sorry, I got that one wrong.
Right.
So he has no credibility.
Right.
What's sad is that 1 out of 10 things he says and throws at the dartboard, it's like, holy fuck, like 2 years, 5 years, 10 years later, you're like, oh my God, he nailed it.
Right.
It's a waste of talent to me, but whatever.
But no, listen, there's money behind all this stuff. Politics is like a priceless industry. I mean, it's so incredibly powerful that I mean, the money that we see is mind blowing, but the money that we don't see is probably really what turns the wheel, and it's just crazy. It's just insane. But I mean, to your point, I think that the vast majority of these people, even dare I say, dancing AOC, you know, from her Boston College days or whatever. You know, she didn't go to Boston College. She went to, I think, Boston University.
Didn't she go to?
She's from Boston.
She didn't go to Harvard.
The same colors, but totally different school.
All right, you go.
Listen, I'm not gonna let you sit here and knock AOC's education when we have what's her name?
I'm not knocking it. I actually thought she did.
Nah, I don't think she's a lawyer. So and I don't think she went to graduate school unless I think her last education was Boston U. But I could be wrong. She was a terrier, I think. But
a what?
A terrier. That's what they are. Boston University Terriers.
Oh my God.
But don't knock her education. We got what's her name down in Georgia. She went to freaking Spelman. You know what Spelman's graduation rate is?
Who?
Spelman College's graduate.
Who are you talking about?
You know, the one that won, the governor that really won the election.
Stacy Abrams?
Yeah, Stacy Abrams.
She actually did go to Harvard.
After Spelman, yes, she went to Harvard.
Oh my God.
I don't. Yes, so did Barack Obama. I don't know. I don't like
Barack Obama.
I don't like where this is going. But anyway,
okay.
He was not there the whole time. He went to Occidental Law School.
No, he didn't.
Yeah,
he was the fucking chief of the Harvard Law Review.
He did go to Harvard Law School, but he started off at Occidental, which is a smaller school in California.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah,
but he was the chief. I mean,
his father was also his uncle was also Frank Marshall Davis. But this is for the After Night podcast.
Who's Frank Marshall Davis?
We can't get in this right now.
No, Mike Spear. No, we're getting into that right now.
Those of you who know, you know.
Who's Frank Marshall Davis?
He's
you know I'm Googling him right now.
You can Google him.
Who was that to him?
He was his uncle, I guess you can call him.
I know that you're like the closeted biggest Obama fan of all time.
No.
You love him.
I don't love him.
You do love him.
No.
He's your favorite person ever.
I don't love him.
Frank Marshall Davis was an American journalist, poet, political and labor movement activist, and businessman.
Direct ties to the Kremlin as well, but I guess that didn't make Wikipedia.
He also played a role in the South Side Writers Group in Chicago and is considered among the writers of the Black Chicago Renaissance. He moved to Honolulu, Hawaii, where he ran a small fuck off. He ran a small business. He became involved in local labor issues. The Federal Bureau of Investigation tracked his activities as they had investigated. Dude, they also had Martin Luther King.
Don't put Frank Marshall Davis and Martin Luther King.
I'm not doing that.
You don't even know who this guy is.
I'm saying they did also consider him the #1 domestic terror threat at one point under J. Edgar Hoover's FBI. So you have to take all this stuff with a grain of salt. But okay, all right, we'll look at this later. That's the late night podcast.
What's interesting is that we've read all this already, and there's still no connection to Barack Obama, which is the most famous part about Frank Marshall Davis. But anyway.
Okay.
I don't even know what my point was at this point.
Oh fuck! Jesus. Do I gotta run the tape? I'm sorry.
No.
You were talking. Fuck.
Oh right, no. My point was this: these politicians, even at the lowest level, they are not cerebral enough to be a part of some kind of global conspiracy to make these anarchic movements turn into just basically nationwide chaos and panic. It's just impossible. Not to mention the people that we always talk about as those who are going to actually create this chaos. They don't even own guns. So I mean, are they? What's their game plan?
I don't think they think about that. Number one. Number two. Does it even matter if the money's flowing from people who do control that?
I mean, I think it matters in the sense that your constituents, I think, have to. I mean, I almost feel like, you know what? I shouldn't say that because these people are so intertwined, I should say, with the government that the fact that they don't personally own guns doesn't mean shit, unfortunately. But
yes. At
the end of the day, I guess my point is that I think that the reality of what we have is we have about a list, you can almost call it, and I'm sure it's not an actual list, but a list of types of ideology, opinions, ideas that fit a mold, and you basically have people who want to create molds in different cities across the country. And I think the most obvious is what's going on in like Texas, where you now have areas of Texas that are essentially, as liberal as parts of Virginia outside of D.C. And it's like kind of shocking, I guess, for some people that lived in Texas their whole lives. But for those that understand what we understand, I guess it's kind of not surprising at all that they're doing this.
I wonder how much of it gets carried over, though, where people start to just leave the political process or even some shift their beliefs because a lot of the people who came there were escaping something, and they think about this differently. I mean, it does. Once you go somewhere and it's like a place where supposedly your opposite exists, but you fled there from, like Californistan or some shit like that.
Right.
And now you realize that your neighbors you live next to, you don't agree with a lot of shit, but like they're nice people and you enjoy their company and all right, cool. There are a lot of those individuals who I think are going to start to be like, you know what? Fuck all this. I'm going to live in my house here. I have some freedom. I'm not going to vote for any of these motherfuckers. And that's a net win for people like in Texas, like a red state, who don't want to see, California blue coming in or whatever. I do think that, look, I'm one of the people who left that political process. I'm not one of the people who went to Texas or whatever, but like I'm one of those people who's like, I've been left, I've been right. This is all bullshit. Fuck this. And that's where I'm at. I think that's on steroids when you're someone who literally picks up your life and goes somewhere entirely different and sees like a new way of life and may not love everything they think, but they're like, I understand the benefits of why I'm here and therefore I'm not going to fuck with that.
Yeah, there are those people. Then there's also the people that go there for one very narrow reason, which is to avoid taxes. Yet they bring the social ideology with them, which you see, like I said, in places like Austin. Listen. At the end of the day, not everyone's Joe Rogan, and I think what he did was probably, I think he did a lot for moderates in general.
Oh yeah,
I think that he. And quite frankly, I think that people despise him. I think that the talking heads that we see on TV, probably both sides of the spectrum, I think more so one side, but just generally both sides of the spectrum, they can't stand guys like him because he normalizes conversations about a topic without having to say, well, this is the way I vote and this is why you need to vote that way. He just kind of talks about the shit,
right?
And you learn a lot from that. And as dumb as it may sound, and you have the women or the men or whoever it is on CNN or these people on Fox, whatever it is, saying, "Oh, what's this guy? What are these guys' credentials?" He's like, "Well, he's a fucking human being.
Credentials. Go fuck yourself.
He's created a hell of a life for himself, a hell of a business that he shares with pretty much anyone that he meets if they're willing to participate." He doesn't seem to be a selfish guy. He doesn't seem to be motivated by someone else, I guess is the best way to put it.
He did something so simple that set such a great example that still not enough people follow, but it's incredible what he's pulled off. And I say this in the sense that during COVID in particularly, given some of the psychotic nature of the political landscape, there has been some shifts in how he perceives some things and in how some people perceive him. And I disqualify that because I think with COVID, all bets are off and we've all lost our minds. And I appreciate the fact that even if I don't necessarily agree with everything he says on certain issues with that, I like that he's having the conversation. I love that he had in Sanjay Gupta. And I respected the fuck out of Sanjay Gupta for being there too, by the way. A lot of people ripped him because he got some things like a little hardliner wrong in that sit down. But that is the beauty of what Joe Rogan has created because Sanjay Gupta, Mr. CNN doctor, walked in there and talked with him for 3 hours.
Right.
Yeah, he got stuff wrong. But there's also elements of truth to what he said. And there's two people who have opposite beliefs on a certain key issue could talk. And that's what Joe created. And I remember I didn't know who he was until my Holly Tevis, you know her.
Yeah,
she was
I think it's her birthday.
It was.
I saw it on Facebook.
Yes, you're fucking on the ball, my man. Yeah.
I like Facebook.
Big,
I hate the guy. I hate Zuckerberg though. He's a fucking weirdo. But
yeah, he's the worst.
I'm sorry.
He's the worst. But yeah, there was like I think it was like after the Elon Musk thing, like in September 2018, where we were working on a thing together, and she was showing me like, oh yeah, he talked with this guy Joe, whatever, and then there was this other thing that went on. Check that out for the story we're working on at the time. And then I'm like, what is the deal with this? I'm looking at this guy, and I'm like, I go and I look, he's doing 3-hour podcasts, and at the time I'm like, yeah, I guess I would listen to that in my ears, but I'm like, I can't believe a lot of people listen to this. Yeah. I wasn't thinking of things that way because I was not separating audio from visual. Right. That was my big mistake.
Right.
And so I'm like, all right, I'm going to Google some episodes that people liked. And I think I remember the 3 that I picked out. It was, I Googled like top 25 or something over the last 2 years. And the first 3 I listened to in this order were David Goggins, Kyle Kalinske, and Jordan Peterson. And I was maybe 30 minutes into Goggins, and I'm like, oh, I get it. I fucking get it. Yeah. I understand what he's doing here. And it was because all these, we have these lights in the studio right here, but guess who turned them on? I did. You know what I mean? Like, there's lights in Joe Rogan's studio, guess who turned them on? Him and Jamie after they shared a blunt. Right, you know what I mean? Right. It took away all this other bullshit, the people in the headphones with the microphone talking into your fucking unseen earpiece, telling you what to say and saying, by the way, we got 30 seconds to commercial break coming up right here, so just make sure you wrap it up with them. Make sure you hit them on this point. Right? There was none of that. And it was just like, yo, bro, I just took a mushroom. Yo, what do you think about like the world right now?
Right.
And people were like, holy shit. oh my God, a real human being talking who I can kind of relate to. Even people that don't like mushrooms or don't like weed, they're like, this is a normal person.
So I saw, again, I'm sure the depth of my, I guess ability to reference different aspects of culture. Unfortunately, not on Instagram, but
you're on Instagram
as
a ghost.
Yeah. So
Michael.g.spear.
Yes.
Never made a post in your life.
No. So I did see one thing. I think that this wasn't on TikTok, but I don't know where I saw it. But it was an interview between, that guy. What the hell?
No, I don't know.
He's a late night show. He's not Kimmel, but it's not Kimmel. It's
Jimmy. The fat guy.
No, not Corbin.
Oh, not Colbert.
No, he's a talk show guy. He's
Fallon, Colbert.
Yeah, Fallon. Jimmy Fallon.
Fallon.
Jimmy Fallon. Jimmy
Fallon.
Yeah,
Jimmy Fallon.
Yeah.
Come on, Mike.
He goes. So Jimmy Fallon has RuPaul on, and it must have been really late when I was watching this shit, and I was bored. But anyway, so he has RuPaul on. So he goes to RuPaul. He goes. He makes a comment. He goes, and you're like this big time drag queen, right? And RuPaul goes, "What did you just call me, dude? You would have thought that Fallon just witnessed his wife and children murdered in front of him, because somebody in his ear, and if it wasn't directly in his ear, in his head just said, 'You are fucking canceled.'" And RuPaul goes, "I'm a drag icon, baby." And I'm thinking to myself, like, okay, I guess that's funny. But the funny part was thinking, like, Fallon was like, what the fuck? I thought I was done right there. Because how can you be how can you talk about anything successfully if you have to talk with a fucking anvil over your head? It's impossible.
He's also not that guy. And I'm not even defending him here. But like, that's the point. People were assuming that they were getting conversation, quote unquote, on late night comedy talk shows. That the entire point is the opposite.
But people believe that. People
That's
watch
what I'm
that
saying.
shit.
Yeah.
They go there. They pay money.
Yes.
We don't have anyone sitting here with us.
Right.
Not that we need them, but I'm just saying.
And not that can't happen though. Like when Kanye was on with Noriega, formerly Noriega, a few weeks ago. They do, and that's not my style, but they do the whole audience thing. But that was a hard hitting regular convert. You know what I mean? Like they talked about heavy shit.
The real Noriega. He owed me 100 favors.
But, he did a phenomenal job.
I actually saw that, yeah.
And like I see, I'm like, wow, that kind of model can even work. But like Jimmy Fallon is a network, cable TV, fucking down the line. Let's just make people laugh and have fun while they're falling asleep or hitting their blunt. That's it.
I can't watch it.
I haven't watched it ever, dude.
I can't watch it.
I haven't watched it ever.
I don't try to, but I also try to understand, like, for example, we were talking about the Alec Baldwin thing. I'm sure the ratings on that were half decent. You look at these other shows, even like Jay Leno, it's like, what the fuck is that? What is that, dude? Like, what is that? I don't even understand what it is.
It's an act.
Yeah, it's like they all basically like took Carson and just like fucking tried to make it like some weird, version of that. But like we're now in such a different. It's so different now. It's just so different. You listen to more genuine stuff. That's what I'm saying. My whole thing was I was a skeptic about podcasts because I said to myself, what the fuck am I benefiting from listening to these people talk about shit that I'm not engaged in, and it's not going to run on the news necessarily. Maybe we talk about issues, but I'm thinking to myself initially, I'm like, who the fuck gives a shit? But then I start listening to it, and I'm like, wow, a lot of this shit I think about all the time.
Yes. And
it's actually refreshing to hear somebody also think that way, or not even necessarily think that way, at least talk about the stuff. So, I think that this is probably the way, media information, dialogue, all that stuff will probably be shared. I think it's going to be prevalent, but boy, man, you guys have a hard fucking task ahead of you, because these media conglomerates, man, they are just nasty creatures.
it's just fitting, like the way we tied all this together, like tying back this current modern day conundrum of a trial with the whole Maxwell thing and Epstein, a dead quote unquote Epstein, being on trial. You know, I had said something a while ago about how he touched everything, right? Like he had a picture with everyone. Do you know this motherfucker was on the record talking about even Bitcoin?
Who, Epstein?
Oh, yeah.
That doesn't surprise me.
Oh, yeah, dude.
That doesn't surprise me.
People, if you want to go look up the article, it was, if you Google Epstein Bitcoin, it was on the nextweb.com, which by the way, Spear, I'm sorry, before you say something, look at the bottom of this article. This was written in 2017, okay? And this writer, it appears, like went to his house and interviewed him. The bottom of the article says, update. July 19, 2019. This article has amended the glaring oversight that Jeffrey Epstein was convicted in 2008 for soliciting prostitution from an underage woman. Epstein has recently been rearrested on federal charges for sex trafficking. TNW regrets not catching this omission at the moment of publishing. Everyone, this outside, I've never fucking even heard of I probably heard of them, but still, this is an NBC, this is an ABC. Everyone overlooked this thing. This guy was sitting in his house, in Epstein's house, next to Bill Clinton's dress portrait.
How on earth is Elon Musk SpaceX facing bankruptcy? The answer is simple. It's not on. It's not on Earth. It's not on Earth.
Yeah,
it's not on Earth. It's facing bankruptcy on Mars. That's right. But in all seriousness,
he touched everything, man. There's and I'm not going to read the article, but like go check the next web Epstein Bitcoin. Just Google that; it'll come up. It's like he talked about like I'm really interested in this next Bitcoin. Anything that had any level of attention that was on any spectrum of politics or social movement, he touched just to fucking tarnish it.
But what exactly? That's exactly right. So we're on the same page, because that's what I was going to say. That's really what it is. Is this guy who his really only claim to fame was having a bit of money turning into a little bit more money and then liking underage girls. Now he's the authority on everything. But if you're going to talk about I'm not.
No, we're not going there because we got to go back to this trial.
Yeah, because
we're what, like 3 days in now? 4
Before
days
we go back to trial, though.
Okay.
All I was trying to say earlier was if you want to use Bitcoin, you want to put a Bitcoin thing up on television, it should be my favorite angry man in a suit saying, I forget his name, you know who I'm talking about, but he goes, did you ever think who's behind it all? You wouldn't want to know.
No. Don't Dan Pena me.
Dan Pena. He goes, you don't want to know who it is.
I know!
Yeah.
I'm going to, one time, episode 39, which lives in a beautiful level of fame in the sense that it was before this podcast, like, had an audience, but it was the rowdiest we like blacked out. Episode 39 cuts off right at about the 3 hour mark because the last hour we were drunk as fuck and we were talking about like a lot of like inside jokes and shit, so it didn't make sense to just leave it. But there was one part in there that one day I'll just put out for shits and gigs where you and me were fighting over Dan Pena and you're like, I kind of like him. And I'm like, fuck you, dude. And I'm like, and Dan Pena got on stage and he's like, everybody thinks that Satoshi isn't known, but I know. Right. It's like this, if you don't know him, he's this angry 80-year-old man who wears like $12,000 suits.
I like him for one reason. It's just because I like the way he approaches people who, it's almost kind of ironic because he like makes fun of people for following people, but yet everyone he's talking to literally is following him around the country, speaking to them. So yes. But the way he talks about it, I imagine myself in a setting where
it's Putin.
Yeah.
So, I know Vladimir Putin. Yeah. Without a doubt, he created Bitcoin. Like that's like, all right, dude. Okay, maybe he did, but like you don't know.
He did.
Shut the fuck up.
He didn't.
He didn't. I don't think he did.
And if you didn't, you'll put your sickle hat on. You'll be fine. He'll be good.
But dude, the first day of this trial, you remember that when James Patterson made that documentary for Netflix on Epstein, the same James Patterson who was writing the famous writer,
Oh,
the same
God.
guy who's writing
I've actually read
who's
one of
writing
those
a
books.
book with Bill Clinton, who was on fucking.
Is he?
Oh,
wow.
yeah.
Oh, Jesus
yeah.
Christ. Oh,
Yeah, the
God.
same
I'm
guy.
I'm gonna have to. I'll be like Ace Ventura in the shower tonight
Same
thinking
guy.
about that.
Oh yeah, baby.
yeah.
But like the same guy who's doing all that, puts out that whole thing. And if you remember, there were several quote unquote star witnesses in there, including Virginia Joffrey,
Right.
who I found to be very credible. The one thing that was really interesting in there that I genuinely believe she thought, like I don't think she was lying at all, but she was like accusing Dershowitz, Alan Dershowitz.
I remember this.
And here's the thing. I still I have a lot of questions about that. I do, because he was around him a lot. But
He was.
I give Dershowitz a ton of credit, and maybe in the afterlife when I figure out what the truth was, I'll want to retract this statement.
Maybe.
But he's the guy who looked into did this documentary, looked into the camera, said,
know.
"Look in my eyes. I did not do that." And which
Right.
could be he's a psychotic liar. Maybe he's that good. I don't know. But like, that's the thing. I believed her,
Right.
who really believed that.
Right.
And I actually believed him too, who was saying that. You know what I mean? So it was a weird thing. But to me, she was a very, very credible person who just gave all kinds of fucking details on people because she was a young girl who was taken advantage of in this thing. Prince Andrew was one of the people who fucked around with her.
Right.
And what's funny is day one of this trial, it gets announced, which by the way, if people are not following or at least checking out Trial Tracker on IG, I've been looking at this every day.
It's great.
That's just one thing. There's a lot of Twitter threads about it too. So just use your brain, use the internet. You can find shit, even on Google. Go get your shit. It's called, on Instagram, it's called @TrialTracker. Day one, it's announced that Virginia Roberts Joffrey, I'm probably pronouncing her name wrong. I haven't watched the documentary in a year, but will not be called at trial. She is the one who accused Prince Andrew of sexual assault. She also says Epstein and Maxwell flew her around the world when she was 17 and 18 for sexual encounters with billionaires, politicians, royals, and heads of state. I understand that this is a federal trial, which somehow still has the archaic system of we're not allowed to have cameras in there, which is fucking crazy. It's how they got Ross Ulbricht. Jim even mentioned that correctly on this podcast. He's like, they don't let cameras in federal courtrooms.
Right.
So I understand that was a given. But we are literally watching the world's shittiest sketch artist draw a bunch of people in mass who look nothing like they actually look in fucking the year of our Lord 2021.
Do you know that? Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I'm literally that's it. We are seeing this. And yet shit like this is happening right in front of us, where someone who was front and center for a fucking Netflix documentary is not being called in there. And you already pointed out that it doesn't look the greatest that James Comey's daughter's at the front of this thing, which in fairness to her, she was at the front of the Epstein trial before he quote unquote killed himself.
Right.
This just and the judge was 3 days before trial, recommended by Biden to be appointed to the appeals court. And it just looks bad, dude.
Well, I'll 2 points. And the first one is the illustrations, the actual, the court-appointed illustrator is actually drawing the sketches. The sketch artist is drawing them as they're seeing it. Actually, the federal government... they actually hired Fauci. He's actually coming in and he's drawing the masks on everybody after the fact. So they're actually not in masks in the courtroom, but he is coming in. So, but no, listen. The one thing I will say about the trial, and I don't, you're right about this, but the problem with these cases, in this case in particular, is you have memories that have faded. You are going to get a lot of I don't knows when you need I know.
That's interesting.
You're talking about years and years. So
That's interesting.
You're going to have witnesses that will not hold up well to cross-examination, and it's going to be a lot of low-hanging fruit for the defense. But at the same time, again, when you have that difficult standard, when you have beyond a reasonable doubt, you have some problems. So I encourage people, if anything, to listen and follow the trial, not necessarily for the verdict, but to hear.
You can't listen. You can only read.
But to listen to the allegations, listen to how serious this is. These things happened. Whether or not they can prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Maxwell had some sort of direct involvement or was a part of a larger conspiracy to traffic these people or whatever you want to call it, groom them, you may not get the verdict that we are looking for, those who actually have a sliver of morality in them. But at the very least, watch this so that you can actually understand what these allegations are, the fact that all these things are true, whether or not they can prove that this particular defendant in the case actually committed these atrocities. I don't know. And that's, again, it's going to be up, not for us to decide.
Yeah, I think the outcome of this case is going to be a guilty. I mean, if it's not, if that happens, I don't know how I'm going to react, and I think that's going to be one of the ultimate social crisis days in the history of this country. And I know I'm saying that over like one trial, but like this is some fucking biblical shit right here. This ties everyone into it completely. So I don't want to go there yet. I want to let it continue to play out. But the sketchiness that you see around this, I'm just running through, like as we're sitting in here, some of these slides on just this one page. And it's very simple. There's not like a ton in there. But you see a story that is familiar at this point. And yet you realize that there's still people who lawfully, correctly, everyone has a right to a fair defense, are defending this in court. And there's still the question of, how is this going to go? How is a jury going to see it? Are they going to change their mind? Are they going to find her innocent for some reason? Even if they don't, and the net result is that we just don't get any more information as a general public. And Ghislaine Maxwell, which, by the way, credit Jim DiOrio, he was right about this. When she got arrested, I said to him, I'm like, oh, she'll be dead within a month. And he said, no, I know the FBI agent in charge of handling her, whatever, at least right now, and talk to him. She's going to be all right. And so far she is. But either way, they've disappeared her until now.
Right.
And if they put her in jail, they'll disappear her again. She won't do any media capabilities.
Right.
Maybe she will end up, not alive at some point. Oh. But we will lose out on understing who talks to who and why, and more importantly, why this never got covered. Why did Epstein commit suicide under a John Barr? Is that his first name, John? The AG? Was it John? Who? AG Barr, Attorney General Barr.
Yeah.
Why did Epstein commit suicide under an AG Barr Justice Department when AG Barr's father was the first man to give an adult Epstein a job? Why have we never heard about or heard from Bill Clinton talking about all the flights he took with Jeff? Why has Trump shut up about this out of nowhere? Because he's never been quiet about it, trying to raise his voice about how bad this guy is. And he even did, like after he got killed, as president, he still drew some attention to it. Why has he shut up about that? Why have none of these actors who have been implicated talked about it? Why have no other governments spoken out who have been implicated by conspiracy theories, quote unquote, in this whole matter, spoken out to address that and say, at least even if they're lying, that is untrue? Why have people completely avoided this? And why are we also scheduling this thing around when things like Kyle Rittenhouse are happening and the Arbery trial, which luckily finished very quickly, so it's now out of the way, and other things that people could pay attention to? Why are there stories going around that are still pushing now an Omicron or whatever the fuck it's called variant right at the time that this trial comes out and the other trials conclude? Why does all this happen? Why can't we get answers? Why can't people hear from the judge after the case, which sounds like it's not going to be a thing? And maybe that is a justice system thing that I could agree with as far as like not, disclosing things. All right, fine. But why is it also secretive? Why are we only getting these little transcripts and one-word answers? Part of it's the system, but part of it is it's a cover-up.
Yeah, I mean, I think, big picture, there's a lot that we need to look at, and I think taking a timeline approach to a lot of this, not Number one, it shows that certain things are important at certain times to the general public. And when I say the general public, I mean what's shoved down their throats. And I think that at some point we all should take a step back and look at the chronologically how these things happen, why they happen in different parts of the country at the same time. There's a lot. I think there's a lot that needs to be said in terms of timing, because I don't believe in coincidences. I just don't. I think that as sophisticated as we are as a human race, this shit is suspect, to say the least.
To say the least, man. I just, when I think about that, I'm always thinking about that fourth turning shit and where we're at right now, and all this happening in a cyclone. You get the financial crisis in 08-09. That leads to the explosion of the wealth gap that had been building since the mid to late 80s. And then you get the political children of that era who were left behind. You get the Occupy Wall Street and you get the Tea Party, who convinced themselves that they hated each other, but they wanted the same things and were pissed off about the same things. They just had different ideas and came from different parts of the country, so therefore had different beliefs on how it could get solved. And then you see rise out of those ashes the two people who should have been the final candidates, Senator Sanders and Donald Trump. And they spoke to those two movements, and they spoke from different angles, but they spoke to the same anger and disappointment of the people. And then you see Trump get into office, who was this total outsider, rogue candidate in a way, who then broke people one way or another politically. I think that's one of Joe Rogan's theories that's brilliant. He has a way of simplifying certain things and putting it in one sentence, usually short words, that is just fucking amazing. But he's like, Trump broke people once and for all. And he did. He broke people in one direction or the other. Right. And now you have it all culminating 2019, this weird sex slave guy commits suicide, quote unquote. And we move towards this world where now we go into Corona to create a giant distraction. The money continues to flow. The power continues to flow. And we're left with a trial of his assistant, who was a horrible person, but questions are left unanswered, and there's enough distractions that people can't see really what's going on. And how much does the result of this thing, whatever it is, and the lack of information we get, or how the trial turns out or doesn't turn out, how much does that end up determining how people react and society breaks or doesn't break? That is a legitimate question, and it's crazy to think that comes from a trial, but it's all the things that built up to this and the symbolism that's around it that people should be thinking about. So,
I mean, again, I think the bigger issue with a lot of this is, what timing, and what I guess media, whatever it is, wants us to see, and when they want us to see it, and how they want us to see it. And I think without us talking about this stuff and kind of connecting the dots together all at once, because you don't see this on the news. You don't see them talk about, chronologically, this happened, then this happened, then that happened, and then, whoa, wait a second.
Right.
So I think that, this platform that you have and that everybody could have at some level, whether it's successful or not successful, and I don't know how to gauge the success of these things anyway in terms of monetary, personal, whatever. As long as people talk about this stuff, I think that there's a chance to get to the bottom of it. But right now, there is a glaring lack of information for X, and just a flood of misinformation about why, and here we are.
And Michael Spear.
Spear Wars.
Spear Wars.
All right.
Spear Wars. Go read the tea leaves. Sounds like a good spot to end it. Everybody else, you know what it is. Give it a thought. Get back to it. Peace.